Section 12 of What to Eat and When. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by BettyB. What to Eat and When by Susanna Cocroft. Diet in Abnormal Conditions. In the dietetic treatment of any disordered organ, the object must be to give that organ as much rest from its regular work as is consistent with keeping up the general nutrition of the system. The stomach and intestines and liver are so closely allied that when one is affected, the others are liable to affection also, and the dietetic treatment is regulated accordingly. In abnormal conditions, it is necessary to say that the food must be regulated according to the case. Yet, broadly speaking, a diet largely of protein, which is digested in the stomach, rests the intestines and stimulates the liver, and a diet largely of carbohydrates rests the stomach because the gastric juice is not active in starch digestion. When the body is not in normal condition because certain elements are lacking in the blood, these elements must be supplied in larger proportions in the food, and the case is one for a food chemist, or for one who has made food conditions a study. The better medical colleges, recognizing the importance of proper food in health and disease, have in the last few years broadened their curriculum to include the subject of dietetics. Educated physical culturists and food specialists for the correction of deranged conditions of the system due to poor circulation and abnormal nerve and blood conditions are doing much of the corrective work, due to the fact that instruction has not been given in the medical colleges. Diets for the reduction of an abnormal amount of fat must also be governed according to the individual condition. In the early stages of various diseases, when toxins are being produced, as a rule the system is not properly eliminating the waste, and it is often advisable to abstain from food for from 1 to 3 days, according to conditions. Brisk exercise, deep breathing, and a free use of water are desirable. A laxative is often recommended. The diets given here for abnormal conditions are to enable those in charge of an invalid to gain an intelligent understanding of the needs of the system and to supply those needs through the proper foods. In serious cases, however, special diets will be ordered by the medical attendant to suit the needs of the individual. A chemical analysis of the blood and the excretions is often the only method of determining just the diet in the individual case. Government chemical laboratories in charge of efficient chemists should be so located as to be accessible to every physician. The system readily excretes an excess of vegetable products, and as a rule, no acute difficulties result from such an excess. Such chronic difficulties as constipation, torpid liver, and indigestion, however, frequently result when an excess of starch is taken above that consumed in energy. On account of the readiness with which putrefaction occurs in protein products, care should be taken not to consume these in too great proportion. A study of the physical ailments of thousands of women has shown, by the constituents in the blood and the condition of the different organs of the digestive system, the habitual taste for foods. One can usually determine which food the individual has formed a habit of eating, because the system will show a lack of the elements which that patient has denied herself on account of her likes and dislikes. It is necessary to change the mental attitude towards certain foods before the system will readily assimilate them. Thus, as stated, a taste for foods which the body requires should be cultivated. Every mother with growing children should be a thorough student of the chemistry of food. If the child's bones do not increase sufficiently in size and strength after the second year, care in the selection of foods rich in protein and phosphates of lime and magnesium may correct it. Such a child should have scraped meat and whole wheat bread with milk and eggs. If the child stores up too much fat, increase the amount of exercise and of oxygen consumed, and either cut down the proportion of sweets and starches or decrease the quantity of food and require more thorough mastication. If one is thin and undernourished, chemical analysis of the contents of the stomach, intestines, and urine is sometimes desirable. The nerves should be relaxed, and proper food, exercise, and breathing should accompany medical treatment, if medicine is needed. Often an entire change in thought and diet are helpful. Sometimes a torpid condition of the liver and sluggish activity of the intestines are indicated. Special exercises to stimulate this activity and to encourage correct poise and deep breathing are most essential. The mind must often be stimulated and an interest be awakened, directing the thoughts in new channels. Worry and tensity of thought are among the chief causes in the majority of cases of lack of flesh and of a very large number of blood and digestive disorders. In anemia, there is either a decrease in the number of red blood corpuscles or an insufficient amount of blood. When there are too few red blood corpuscles, oxygen carriers, the necessary quantity of oxygen is not furnished the tissues, and the system becomes clogged with waste. The patient easily tires and is disinclined to exercise. Thus, the decreased number of red corpuscles are not kept in forceful circulation, and the carbon dioxide is not freely thrown off by the lungs. This further aggravates the condition. Since the blood is made from the foods assimilated, the point is to supply food which builds blood tissue. Exercise and deep breathing will encourage the elimination of waste and promote a forceful circulation which ensures nourishment to the tissues. As stated, it is the food assimilated, not always the amount eaten, that counts. In this condition, it is of vital importance that one keep up a good circulation. The stomach, intestines, liver, and spleen must be strengthened through exercise and deep breathing of pure air, for the red blood corpuscles are oxygen carriers, and the insufficient supply must do double duty, or the waste of the system will not be oxidized and eliminated, and the blood-forming organs will further fail in their task. Exercise must be graded to the case, being gentle at first so as not to overtire the easily fatigued muscular system. It should be intelligently directed to the joints and to the vital organs, particularly to the liver and intestines, that they may be kept in normal activity. The exercises must be followed with plenty of rest and accompanied by deep breathing. The habit of full breathing is one of the most effective agencies in correction of anemia, because the red blood corpuscles must carry their full quota of oxygen or the system is clogged with waste. Oxygen also rejuvenates these corpuscles. Unless the blood furnished to the tissues is of good quality and contains sufficient oxygen, the nutrition of the body suffers, the activity of the various organs is hindered, and the health becomes impaired. Functional derangements, particularly in the digestive tract, follow, and faulty digestion and difficult absorption further impoverish the blood. The work, therefore, in the correction of anemia lies in foods which build blood and in daily exercise and deep breathing of fresh air, accompanied by rest. The windows at night should admit a good circulation of air through the sleeping room, and as much time as possible should be spent in the open air. Anemia occurs many times in growing girls, due to an improperly balanced diet, caused by a capricious appetite, and by the habit of satisfying this appetite with sweets, pickles, etc. The body, during growth, needs increased nutritive material, not only to replace the waste, but also to meet the demands for new building material for the various organs, particularly the brain and the nervous system. Overwork either in school or in industrial occupations, the hasty eating of meals, or insufficient amounts of food also aid in reducing both the quantity and quality of the blood. Worry is one chief cause of anemia. Insufficient sleep due to late hours further increases the tension of the nerves and lowers the vitality, causing depression which interferes with digestion. When the red blood corpuscles are decreased, the oxidation of the fats is interfered with, because oxygen is necessary to burn the fat. The non-use of the fatty material causes it to be stored in the tissues so that the body often appears well nourished and plump. The muscles, however, are flabby and weak, and usually the pallor of the skin shows the lack of coloring matter in the blood. The digestive organs are often weak. They must not be overloaded, or the very object of the extra feeding will be defeated. In such cases, the food must be taken in less quantity and more frequently. Also, a diet rich in albumin and iron must be supplied. It will often be found that one whose blood is lacking in hemoglobin and in the proper proportion of red blood corpuscles has had a dislike for the foods rich in iron, or perhaps through poverty or some other cause has not been able to get the right kind of food. The yolks of eggs, the red meats such as steak, mutton, or the breast of wild game, and the deeply colored greens such as spinach, chard, dandelions, etc., contain a goodly proportion of iron. The dark leaves of lettuce, celery, and cabbage contain iron. These vegetables are apt to be bleached before being marketed. It is better in anemia to take the yolks of 2 eggs than 1 whole egg, as the iron is in the yolk. A good way to take the yolks of eggs is an egg lemonade or an eggnog with a little flavoring. Anemia sufferers have usually formed the habit of eating starches and sweets. It will usually be found that they have no desire for vegetables containing iron or for meats rich in albuminoids, and this habit is shown in the blood composition. They often eat the white of the egg and discard the yolk, rich in iron. Tact and persuasion will often be necessary to induce them to take the proper foods. If constipation is present, whole wheat bread, oatmeal, stewed prunes, grapes, stewed or baked apples, and oranges should be taken freely. When the anemic individual is thin, he should take as much fat food as the system will assimilate. Bacon is well digested and palatable. Fat may be taken in milk, cream, and butter. The food must be made attractive to tempt the appetite, which is usually poor, and within reason one should be allowed any wholesome food which he desires. Condiments often stimulate the stomach and intestines to better action. Vinegars, because of their action on the blood, should not be allowed, nor rich pastries and sauces. Beef may be scraped and made into sandwiches or used in purees and meat broth, which may also have a beaten egg in it. The following is a suggestive diet in anemic conditions. Diet 7. 1 pint of milk to be sipped slowly before arising. Breakfast. Fruit, broiled steak or 2 eggs, soft boiled, poached or baked with bacon. Cereal, coffee, chocolate, or cocoa. Toast or graham or whole wheat bread or graham or corn muffins, butter. Middle of the forenoon. Lemonade with a tablespoonful of beef juice, not beef extract, or with a beaten egg, or a glass of egg malted milk, or an eggnog. Lunch. Split pea or bean soup with toast and butter, or scraped beef sandwich with lettuce. Fruit or vegetable and nut salad, no vinegar. Fruit, fresh or stewed. Bread with plenty of butter. Cake, a glass of milk, cocoa, or chocolate, preferably milk. Middle of afternoon. Egg lemonade or eggnog of 2 eggs beaten in boiling milk with sugar and spices. Dinner. Bouillon, tenderloin steak, roast beef, or lamb chops. Baked potato. Spinach, beet, or dandelion greens. Custard, fruit gelatin, or cornstarch pudding, or rice with lemon cream or butter sauce. Bread and plenty of butter. Glass of milk or weak tea. When appetite is persistently absent, attention should be paid to the eliminative organs in order to remove all clogging of the system by retained waste. If the stomach and intestines are prolapsed as a result of improper nourishment and resultant weak tissues, rest in bed with special exercises which will replace the organs and strengthen the supporting tissues is required. Stomach disorders. Most chronic cases are due to worry, to improper hygiene such as irregular meals, fat and greasy foods, hasty eating, too much sweets, insufficient mastication with resulting lack of saliva, wrong choice of foods, too frequent eating, giving the stomach no rest, too large an amount of food, too highly spiced foods, coffee, or tea, a general rundown condition with a weakness of muscles of the stomach due to insufficient blood supply, to a weakened or overstrained condition of nerves controlling the stomach, and usually to insufficient exercise and fresh air. Indigestion or dyspepsia is the broad term commonly applied to most chronic stomach and intestinal difficulties, due not alone to structural disease or to displacements, but also to their inability to perform their normal functions. The term includes troubles arising from so many different causes that in each case the cause must be determined and remedied before definite results can be attained through diet. The most usual is that the gastric glands are pouring out an insufficient amount of secretion. Almost always there is a deficiency of hydrochloric acid. In some cases, in which the food has irritated and inflamed the stomach, there may be a sufficient secretion of this acid, but an inflamed stomach throws off more mucus, and the extra quantity of mucus neutralizes the hydrochloric acid. When the acid is deficient or absent, the proteins are not well digested, and the food may ferment. Bacteria may produce putrefactive changes and the formation of gas. The gas interferes with the movement of the diaphragm, pressing it against the heart, causing pain and even palpitation. Indigestion is usually accompanied by constipation or by irregular action of the intestines. Plenty of fresh air and exercise directed definitely to muscles and nerves of the stomach, that it may be strengthened by a better blood supply, as well as exercises and deep breathing to build up the general health, should be systematically followed. Easily digested food, well masticated, and regular meals served daintily will gradually regulate digestion. Food should not be of too great a variety at one meal. It must be simple and well prepared. When nerves and muscles are weak, it should be served less in quantity but more frequently. Sometimes light food every hour or every 2 hours is best. Cheerful, constructive thoughts are the very best of medicine for digestive derangements. A glass of cold water from 1/2 to an hour before the meal will cleanse the stomach by washing out the mucus and will promote the secretion of saliva and the gastric juices. The intelligent medical treatment of stomach difficulties is aided by a chemical analysis of the stomach contents. If the stomach is not secreting normal proportions of pepsin or hydrochloric acid, the deficiency of either can be determined. Such chemical analysis will alone determine what elements are lacking. Permanent relief must lie in gaining a good circulation of blood through the entire body and through the stomach, that it may be strengthened and thus enabled to secrete these elements in proper proportions. Nervous indigestion. This is due to the general depleted condition of the nerves. In such cases, the entire nervous system should be regulated through exercise, breathing, rest, and a change of thought. Physicians usually recommend change of scene to cause a change of thought. The diet should be light and laxative and low in protein. Cream soup, bread and milk, malted milk, buttermilk, cream, fruits, crackers and milk, custards, egg lemonade, and gruels furnish easily digested food. Tea, coffee, much meat, fried food, highly spiced food, pastry, candies, pickles, alcohol, and tobacco should be avoided. When the walls of the stomach are weak and distended or prolapsed, light food served in small quantities at regular but more frequent periods is preferable to a hearty meal, which further distends the stomach walls. The stomach does not secrete sufficient gastric juices to digest a meal large enough to supply the needs of the system if food is taken only 3 times a day. When a loss of weight occurs, it usually indicates a failure to assimilate rather than the failure to eat a sufficient amount of food. A good circulation, particularly through the vital organs, must be established. Deep, full breathing of fresh air and regular and complete rest periods should be observed. Usually, in chronic cases, a dietitian or a physician is not called until the condition has prevailed for so long that other complications have set in and the patient has lost much flesh. It takes months to pull the system down, and it takes months of following of proper hygiene to build it up. This involves an inflammation of the mucous lining of the stomach and is a most common phase of indigestion. In acute cases, the physician is called at once. He can then treat the case in its initial stage and cause a much more rapid recovery. Acute gastritis is accompanied by nausea and vomiting, and the patient should refrain from taking food for at least 2 days. To allay thirst, a tablespoonful of water may be held in the mouth for a few moments without swallowing it. A slice of lemon may be sucked if water excites vomiting, or cold carbonated or acidulated waters may be sipped, a teaspoonful at a time, every 10 or 15 minutes. Rest of both body and mind must be obtained. After 2 days, begin the nourishment with water and a small portion of liquid food, not over 2 ounces every 2 hours. Toast tea, made by pouring hot water over toast, oatmeal, or barley gruel, thoroughly strained so that no coarse matter may irritate the stomach. Lime water and milk and egg lemonade are easily digested. Increase the quantity on the 4th day and lengthen the time between feedings to 3 hours. Gradually increase the diet, adding semi-liquid food, soft boiled eggs, moistened toast, raw oysters, etc., slowly returning to the regular bill of fare. Avoid any food difficult of digestion and any vegetable containing coarse fiber. Care in the diet must be observed for several weeks or a relapse may occur. Chronic gastritis is accompanied by a thickening of the mucous lining of the stomach. It is usually caused by prolonged use of irritating foods, and the regulation of the diet is of utmost importance. Alcohol is a common cause. The difficulty begins gradually, and the relief will be gradual. There is an excessive secretion of thick, tenacious mucus, which prevents the gastric juices from mixing with the food. The resulting fermentation of food causes heartburn and produces much gas. Thirst may be excessive. The stomach needs washing. The washing may be accomplished by drinking 2 glasses of hot water at least an hour before breakfast, followed by stomach exercises, to cause a surging of the water through the stomach. This may be followed by a glass of cold water. This may be uncomfortable at first, causing a full feeling, and one may begin by drinking 1 glass, followed by stomach exercises, gradually taking another glass within a half hour of the first. This, by means of the exercises, will wash out the mucus. A glass of cold water half an hour before each meal is recommended here as well as for relief of indigestion. In many cases, as much as a pint of slimy mucus collects in the stomach during the night. When the stomach cleansing by means of water drinking is impossible, the physician often uses a stomach tube. Chronic gastritis, in any of its phases, is frequently accompanied by constipation, which reacts on the stomach, and the diet should be as laxative as possible, without irritating the lining of the stomach. In case an acute attack occurs, which is likely in chronic cases, the diet under acute gastritis should be followed. Pancreatinized milk is an excellent food in both chronic and acute cases, especially when they are severe. This is prepared by putting pancreatin, a pancreatic ferment, trypsin, into fresh milk. Preparations of pancreatin are sold in the drugstores. Pepsin may be used in the same way for making peptonized milk. The pancreatinized milk does not form hard curds and readily passes through the stomach for digestion in the intestine. The taste is rather bitter. It may be disguised by flavoring. This may be given for a few days, followed by milk and lime water, barley and toast water, kumyas, oatmeal gruel, meat juices, scraped meat, raw, boiled, or roasted, broths thickened with thoroughly cooked cereals, ice cream, egg lemonade, gelatins, and whipped cream, custards, and raw oysters. Fruit in the morning and just before retiring aid the intestines. 2 prunes chopped up with 1 fig, or a bunch of grapes, or an apple, just before retiring, may be eaten to assist the action of the intestines and the kidneys. Almost all fruits contain acids which increase the peristalsis and the resultant flow of gastric juice. Cooked pears, stewed or baked apples, prunes, and dates are mild fruits which may be used if they agree. The juice of an orange on arising may be used if relished. All cereals should be thoroughly cooked. The white meat of chicken, well masticated, is readily digested. After an acute attack, as the solid food is resumed, it should be given regularly and in small amounts. Thorough mastication is important. The food should be chewed until it is reduced to a pulp. Fats and food cooked in fat must be avoided. Dried beef, lean boiled ham, and salt fish agree better with some than fresh meats. All sweets must be forbidden. Starchy foods are apt to produce sour stomach. Avoid meat with tough fiber, too fat meat, pork, sausage, lobster, salmon, chicken salads, mayonnaise, cucumbers, pickles, cabbage, tea, coffee, alcohol, pastry, too much sweets, and cheese if it disagrees. 5 to 6 light meals a day are preferable to 3 heavy meals. The flow of gastric juices is constitutional, thus the regulation of digestion depends on the general vitality as well as on foods. The circulation must be forceful, the habit of deep breathing and of regular periods of complete rest of body and mind must be established. Since one with chronic gastritis is liable to have many idiosyncrasies, he should not be urged to eat foods for which he has a dislike. The easily digested foods should be prepared in various ways and served in an appetizing, dainty manner. There are 4 special phases of chronic gastritis: mucus gastritis, hyperchlorhydria, hypochlorhydria, and achlorhydria. In mucus gastritis there is a profuse secretion of mucus in the stomach. In this case it is always well to wash out the stomach before introducing food, as suggested above. The same general diet suggested for acute gastritis should be followed. The condition known as hyperchlorhydria shows a liberal excess of hydrochloric acid. The condition is common and is brought on by worry, nervous excitement, eating when overtired, irregularity of meals, imperfect mastication, and excessive use of alcohol. The diet should be a mixed one, in about normal proportions. If anything, it should incline more to proteins than to starches. The hydrochloric acid is necessary for the digestion of proteins, and some physicians give a diet consisting almost entirely of proteins, such as eggs, lean meat, etc., because hydrochloric acid reduces the protein to acid albumin, which is less irritating to the stomach than the free hydrochloric acid. However, the proteins are stimulating to the stomach, and the protein proportion should not be carried to excess. The best method is to follow a diet in which the foods have practically their normal balance, avoiding all irritating foods. The juice of 1/4 of a lemon taken 1/2 hour before the meal will decrease the secretion of hydrochloric acid. Lime water and milk may be used exclusively for 2 days. Alkaline, effervescing mineral water may be used, and then the diet should follow the general diet in chronic gastritis. Hypochlorhydria is a diminution in the amount of hydrochloric acid. Since this acid is essential in gastric digestion of proteins, a decrease in its supply diminishes the power of the stomach to digest meat, eggs, etc. Physicians often administer hydrochloric acid about 1 hour after a meal. It should not immediately follow the meal consisting of part solid food, because it retards salivary digestion. Acid fruit, such as lemonade or egg lemonade, should be given half an hour after the meal instead of at the beginning. Many advocate a diet omitting protein, but since protein foods stimulate the flow of gastric juices, they should not be omitted, but taken less freely. The meals should be at least 6 hours apart so as to allow time for digestion and to give the stomach rest. When there is an entire absence of hydrochloric acid, as in achlorhydria, the stomach of course cannot digest proteins, and this digestion must be accomplished entirely by the trypsin of the pancreatic juice. The absence of liquefied protein, as beef juice in the stomach, however, acts as a stimulus to the gastric juice and is an agency in again starting its flow. The food should be liquid so as to pass through the stomach without irritating it. Clear milk must be excluded because of the action of the rennin in coagulating the casein. This would irritate the stomach. Pancreatinized milk may be used as an article of diet; also milk with lime water, junket, gelatin, cream, butter, bacon, olive oil, gruels, and any foods which will pass through the stomach without change and are digested by the pancreatic juice in the intestines. Bran must be excluded from any cereals. Cereals or any carbohydrates cooked or masticated to a liquid state will pass through the stomach without difficulty and be digested and absorbed in the small intestine. Dilatation results from continued overeating, especially when the nerves are weak, or eating when overtired. The muscular walls become so weak that they fail to contract. Peristalsis is likewise weak, and the food, failing to digest promptly, ferments and forms gas. A dilated stomach is enlarged, and its weight and weakness cause it to prolapse. In the prolapse condition, the pyloric or lower orifice of the stomach is often nearly closed, partly by reason of its position and partly by the weakened folds of the stomach walls. Because of this obstruction to the free emptying of the contents into the duodenum, it is imperative that the food be of the simplest form, thoroughly masticated, and perhaps predigested and concentrated so as to be in as small an amount as possible. A chunk of food could not easily pass through the pylorus. All liquid or semi-liquid food should be subject to the chewing movements until it also is mixed with saliva. The stomach should not be overloaded with either food or water, and for this reason 6 or more light meals a day at regular intervals is best. A dilated stomach does not necessarily indicate that the digestive juices are not secreted in normal proportions, and easily digested proteins need not be avoided. It is desirable to furnish the proteins in concentrated form, as in meats, so as to get the most nutrition with the least bulk. They should be thoroughly masticated. Milk may be used with lime water if sipped slowly and mixed with saliva. Sugar should be used very sparingly because it ferments readily and aggravates the distension. If it is evident that fermented products are in the stomach, it should be washed out with a stomach pump. A tumor near the pylorus or constriction of the pyloric orifice by prolapsus will also cause dilatation of the stomach. Beef juice, any of the better grades of meat, well masticated and containing no gristle, lime water and milk, soft cooked eggs, and well cooked cereals and vegetables should constitute the diet. Avoid vegetables containing coarse fiber, fried foods, and freshly baked bread. Liquid with the meal should be avoided on account of the tendency to overload the stomach. Cold water, taken a swallow at a time at intervals during the day, has a tonic effect on the relaxed muscles. It also incites the flow of gastric juice. The best and quickest means of correcting a prolapsed and dilated stomach is by rest in bed for several weeks, with special exercises to raise the viscera and to strengthen all abdominal muscles, as well as the muscular coat of the stomach itself. The food must be given in small quantities every hour. Ulcer of the stomach. When this condition is severe, accompanied with severe pains and vomiting of blood, the nourishment is given through the rectum for from 5 to 10 days. Then for 10 days a milk diet with bouillon, barley water, a beaten egg, and once a day, after the 3rd day, strained oatmeal gruel is taken. Lime water is added to the milk to avoid the formation of large curds and to neutralize the acids of the stomach. The patient is given half a cup of milk every hour for 3 days, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. From the 3rd to the 10th day, the quantity may be increased to 1 cupful, then to a cup and a half, and the periods between feedings lengthened to 2 hours. If the milk is thoroughly heated, but not boiled, before the lime water is added, it digests more readily. After 10 days, for the succeeding 10 days the nourishment should be given every 2 hours and the diet varied by semi-liquid foods, such as gruels, toast water, soft boiled egg, once a day, beef juice, 2 softened crackers, once a day, gelatin, buttermilk, and strained soups. After 20 days, the patient, if all is well, may very gradually resume a normal diet, beginning with baked potatoes, softened toast, lamb chops, a small piece of steak or white meat of chicken. It is imperative that all food liquid or solid, be thoroughly mixed with saliva, and that solids be chewed to a pulp. Liquids must not be swallowed either hot or cold, but about body temperature. Cold water may be taken into the mouth when more palatable than warm, and held there until about body temperature before it is swallowed. All liquids should be sipped, not swallowed in gulps. When the condition of ulcer has existed for some time, complete rest in bed for from 6 to 10 weeks is advisable. Either the diet suggested above, or if it is desired to gain in weight, a diet of milk, cream, and eggs may be followed. All solid food should be avoided. Intestinal disorders. Most cases of intestinal difficulties may be traced to a clogged condition, either due to a weakness of the nerves and of the intestinal muscles, with resultant weak peristalsis, or to insufficient lubrication. If the waste is not promptly removed through the intestines, irritation may result, and the poisons from bacterial fermentation will be absorbed by the system. Deranged digestion in the stomach also interferes with digestion in the intestines. Likewise, delayed intestinal digestion affects digestion in the stomach. A large number of cases of constipation become chronic because of the failure to respond to nature's call at a regular time each day. Many others are due to weakness of the muscular walls of the intestines or to the nerves controlling them. In this event, the intestinal peristalsis is weak. Constipation may be mechanical, due to obstruction of the intestine in some part of its course, e.g., prolapsus, tumor, or a kink in the bowel itself. Still another cause is a failure of the liver to discharge sufficient bile into the intestines to lubricate the feces. Many chronic cases are due to the pill and drug habit. When one continues to take pills, the condition brings a result similar to the feeding of pre-digested food. If the work is done for the organs, they become lazy and rely on artificial aid. Every part of the body requires activity for strength. If the intestines are cramped by the clothing, it may cause constipation by restraining their normal exercise during movements of the body in walking, etc. Exercises for the intestines should be taken morning and night. Constipation may exist even where there apparently is a daily movement of the bowels. Material may accumulate in the large intestine because only a part of the contents is discharged, and may cause the unpleasant symptoms which accompany constipation. It may arise from irregularity in meals or from overeating, thus causing derangements of digestion from disturbance of the normal process. Insufficient food may cause it because the mass is not large enough to be acted on by the muscular movements of the intestines. Too much strong tea, by its astringent action, lessens the secretions of mucus and causes the mass to become too dry. Too little water may be taken and the food not sufficiently moistened. Food may be concentrated and leave little residue. Overeating, especially when the intestinal muscles are weak, furnishes a greater bulk than the intestines have the power to propel. Hence a semi-paralysis and inactivity result. Anxiety and grief or worry may inhibit the action of the nerves and thus cause a stagnation of movement on the part of the bowels. The cause of the difficulty must be ascertained before relief can be gained. The most natural relief for constipation, therefore, comes through exercise, particularly when directed to the muscles of the stomach and of the intestines and to the nerve centers controlling them. The free use of water and such foods as figs and raisins, prunes, dates, grapes, apples, and rhubarb, which are laxative in effect, are helpful. These have best effect when eaten just before retiring or when the stomach is empty. The use of vegetables which furnish a large bulk of fiber is often beneficial. Cabbage, celery, lettuce, spinach, mustard greens, oyster plant, and asparagus consist largely of residue. Onions are also laxative, especially when boiled. Tomatoes possess a special laxative effect for many individuals. When derangements of digestion make raw fruits undesirable, they may be cooked and thus used for their laxative effect. They are not so laxative when cooked with much sugar, because much sugar may cause fermentation and gas. A little bicarbonate of soda added to acid fruits after cooking will correct the acidity and not so much sugar will be needed. 2 or 3 glasses of water should be taken on rising and before retiring. This cleanses the stomach as well as aids in relieving the dryness of the bowel contents. Oatmeal, or any cereal containing the bran, is laxative. Such are bran or cornmeal bread, Boston brown bread made with molasses, and graham bread. Children should be trained to attend to nature's call regularly every day. The best time is shortly after breakfast. Inflammation or catarrh of the intestines is similar in its nature to gastritis or catarrh of the stomach. Acute enteritis or cholera morbus is usually caused by a strong irritant, either by some food which disagrees, by unripe fruits, or by a mass of undigested food. A fast of 2 or 3 days is the usual initial dietetic treatment. A free drinking of water not only soothes the irritated intestines, but it cleanses the intestinal tract and assists in eliminating elements of fermentation. If these are not eliminated, they will be absorbed into the blood. Absolute quiet in bed is necessary. After the fast, a liquid and semi-liquid diet is followed until inflammation is relieved and diarrhea and vomiting have ceased. Milk, strained gruels, broths, strained soups, buttermilk, eggs, soft cooked or raw, beef juice, barley water, custards, junket, gelatins, soft puddings, etc., are most nourishing and cause little irritation. Milk should be mixed with lime water to prevent the formation of large curds and should be sipped. Water should not be taken as it tends to increase the diarrhea. Ice may be held in the mouth to relieve thirst. All irritating foods, such as coarse vegetables, pickles, acid fruits, and fruits with coarse seeds, candies, beer, wines, and salads, must be omitted. Chronic enteritis has the same general cause as acute enteritis, though its onset is slow and it takes a correspondingly longer time to correct. A milk diet for 2 or 3 weeks may be necessary to rest the bowels. When food is taken, if undigested particles appear in the stool, it may be necessary to use pre-digested foods for a while. If acute, dysentery demands complete rest in bed. The diet, in both acute and chronic cases, must be confined to easily digested foods, such as peptonized or pancreatinized milk, boiled milk, meat juice, and the white of egg, beaten and served with milk. Blackberry brandy and tea made from wild cherry bark tend to check the inflammation. During convalescence, care must be taken not to overfeed. Fruits and vegetables should be avoided. Begin a more liberal diet with an increased amount of beef juice, gradually adding tender beef steak, roast beef, fish, white meat of chicken, eggs, custards, jelly, dry toast, blanc mange, well-boiled rice, and other easily digested food. The beef and egg are particularly valuable because of the anemia occasioned by the loss of blood. Derangements of the liver. The liver is not, in a strict sense, a digestive organ, but the digested food must pass through it and undergo certain chemical changes. For a fuller understanding of the reasons for the following suggestions regarding diet in liver derangements, the chapter on the work of the liver should be reread. It will be recalled that the liver acts not only on the foods, but it also stands on guard to neutralize poisonous ferments due to putrefactions absorbed from the intestines and to render them harmless. To a limited extent, it also oxidizes alcohol. After the gorging of a heavy meal, the overloaded blood and liver express themselves in a sluggishness of the brain, and one feels mentally as well as physically inert. Since both carbohydrates and protein undergo chemical changes in the liver, it is evident that a diet consisting of an excess of either must overwork the liver, not only through the nutritive food elements absorbed, but through the toxic substances which may be produced. The regulation of diet when the liver is in an abnormal condition must be more in the quantity than in the quality of food. The condition of the liver depends also on the activity of the intestines, since the poisonous products from imperfectly digested and fermenting food not being eliminated will be absorbed and carried to the liver. If the food remains in the intestines too long, it is attacked by the bacteria always present there. Fermentation results, and poisons are absorbed and carried to the liver, which usually can render them harmless to the system. If for any reason the liver is diseased, overloaded, or its action is sluggish, these toxins are absorbed in larger quantities than the liver is able to handle. Hence, they re-enter the blood and poison the system. The most important corrective agencies when the liver is inactive is a fast for a day or two, a free drinking of water, deep breathing, and exercise so directed as to bring a free supply of blood to this organ. It is apparent that the blood must carry its full quota of oxygen to assist in eliminating both the nitrogenous waste and the poisons. It must also be remembered that the liver must oxidize the waste from its own tissues as well as from other parts of the system. Biliousness. This condition is due to the overproduction of bile, which may be absorbed into the blood, to inactivity of the body and a resultant sluggish circulation of blood, to overwork of the liver due to overeating, and to insufficient breathing of pure air. It may also result from constipation and the resultant absorption of toxic matter, as previously described. It may be occasioned also by obstruction of the opening of the bile duct into the intestines from an excess of mucus in the duodenum. In such cases, exercises for the intestines are clearly indicated. In the bending, twisting, and squirming movements which the infant in the cradle makes, the liver is regularly squeezed and relaxed. The same is true of the free movements of an active child at play. If during adult life these same free movements of bending and twisting the trunk were continued daily, and correct habits of free breathing of pure air were established, there would be little call for liver tonics. The transformation of carbohydrates in the liver is an important part of its work, and in case of inactive liver, the sugars and starches should be limited in the diet. Protein stimulates the activity of the liver, yet it is a mistake to allow a diet too rich in protein. The best method is to cut down the quantity of food. 2 glasses of water an hour before breakfast, followed by brisk exercise for the vital organs, and deep breathing are the best remedies. The daily action of the bowels is imperative. In extreme cases, a fast of 2 or 3 days, with a copious use of water, is recommended. Following this fast, the diet should consist of easily digested foods, eliminating those containing starch and sugar in too great proportions, as bread, cereals, and potatoes. The amount should be as limited as is consistent with the actual necessity for rebuilding and for energy. The taking of fat should be restricted in biliousness. The presence of fat in the duodenum stimulates the flow of pancreatic juice, which in turn stimulates the secretion of bile, thus overworking the liver. Lemon stimulates the action of the gastric glands and thus tends to increase the liver activity. It has been thought that eggs and milk cause sluggish liver action. There is no physiological reason for this if too much food is not eaten. The fact is often lost sight of that milk is a food as well as a beverage, and that when milk constitutes an appreciable part of the diet, other foods should be limited accordingly. The diet may be selected from the following: soups, light broths and vegetable soup with a little bread toasted in the oven. Fish, raw oysters, fresh white fish. Meats, mutton, lamb, chicken, or game. Farinaceous, whole wheat or graham bread and butter, toast buttered or dry, toasted crackers, cereal in small portions. Vegetables, fresh vegetables, plain salads of watercress, lettuce, and celery without oil or mayonnaise dressing. Lemon juice and salt may be used. Desserts, gelatins, fruits, cornstarch, ice cream, junket, simple puddings, all with very little sugar. Liquids, hot water, lemonade, orangeade, toast water, buttermilk, loppered milk, and unfermented grape juice, not too sweet. Avoid all rich, highly seasoned foods, candies, cheese, pies, pastry, pancakes, or any fried foods, salmon, herring, mackerel, bluefish, eels, dried fruits, nuts, and liquors of all kinds. Gallstones occur most often in persons after middle life, especially those of sedentary habits. A substance called cholesterin is normally present in solution in bile and in the tissues. When, through inactivity of the liver, or when because of sedentary habits the bile remains too long in the system, the cholesterin is precipitated and mixed with mucus it forms gallstones. A diet composed mostly of starch and fat favors their formation. All dietetic measures should be combined with exercise to promote the flow of bile into the intestines. 2 glasses of hot water should be taken in the morning and before retiring. Several glasses of cold water should be drunk through the day. Sweets and starches should be largely eliminated from the diet. Sweet fruits and root vegetables must be avoided. Fresh green vegetables and acid fruits may be taken. Potatoes contain calcium, but because they contain much more potassium, which lessens the liberation of calcium, they may also be used. Foods rich in calcium should be avoided. Foods causing calcium oxalate deposits should be avoided as they may cause the formation of gallstones. Meat, if taken, must be lean and eaten only once a day. Beef and chicken are the preferable meats. Fresh fish may be used. Alcohol must not be taken, and coffee and tea must be limited in strength and quantity. Active exercise must be practiced daily and full elimination secured from the bowels. The person afflicted with gallstones must not sit too long or in a cramped position. The presence of fat in the duodenum increases the flow of pancreatic juice, which in turn stimulates the flow of bile, so olive oil is often recommended in case of gallstones. It is questionable whether it is of benefit because, as stated, much fat upsets the liver. Watch the water supply. Hard water which contains lime should be boiled to precipitate the calcium. Derangements of the kidneys. The office of the kidneys is to eliminate from the system certain nitrogenous elements in solution. The work of the kidneys in most conditions is aided by copious drinking of water. The influence exerted on the function of the excretory organs by the components of the food has not been given the attention it merits. If the fluids are not taken in sufficient amount and much animal food is eaten, the urine becomes more concentrated and may irritate the kidneys or the bladder and give rise to calculi, kidney stones, or to the deposit of uric acid. Watery vegetables, juicy fruits, milk, water, and most beverages, by increasing the output of urine, lessen its acidity and density. A diet limited to certain articles of food by the likes or dislikes of the individual, as the starches and sugars, too large consumption of acid fruits, or too fatty foods may cause the appearance in the urine of abnormal amounts of various substances, as sugar, phosphates, calcium oxalate, or fatty acids. Acid fruits in moderation and digestion and favor suitable elimination, but when eaten to excess, as lemons, taken 2 or 3 or more a day, by those striving to reduce flesh, the urine is increased in acidity and irritation of the bladder may ensue. Too great an amount of food tends to overwork the kidneys as well as the liver, and various derangements result. These must be treated dietetically as well as by medicine. In inflammation of the kidneys, nephritis, the secretion of urine is lessened or may cease. The kidneys and digestive system must not be overworked, and all food must be eliminated save milk until the kidney function is restored. It may be diluted with lime or vichy, or skimmed milk or buttermilk may be used. Water flushes the kidneys, and if the urine increases in amount when water is given, its use may be continued. When the amount of urine is diminished or the kidneys are not functioning at all, water or any fluid or food that gives the kidneys work must be given only on the advice of a physician, as serious harm may be done unless the inflamed kidneys are given as near perfect rest as possible. Sometimes even milk must be reduced to 1 pint a day. In the event that the kidneys do not excrete, the pores of the skin must be kept freely open by sweat baths to assist in the elimination of urea. Dr. Hall recommends a milk and cream diet of from 3 to 7 pints a day, for a few days, according to the case, 2 parts of milk to 1 of cream. If the urine is scanty, he reduces it to 1 1/2 pints a day, taken in 4 or 5 installments. After the 3 to 7 days of milk diet, he gradually introduces starches and fats into the diet. Bright's disease is an inflammatory condition of the kidneys in which albumin appears in the urine. It results from irritation and may be acute or chronic. The appearance of albumin in the urine does not always indicate disease. It may be temporary, merely indicating that the diet, for the time being, is too heavy or contains an excess of protein, especially meat. Several tests from 1 to 2 weeks apart are often necessary to determine whether the condition is merely temporary or is due to inefficient action of the kidneys. When for any reason the kidneys have difficulty in eliminating the nitrogenous waste of the system, the dietitian must eliminate protein food as closely as may be consistent with the body necessities. Besides restricting the amount of nitrogenous foods, the kidneys must be assisted in eliminating the nitrogenous waste and the products of inflammation by a copious drinking of water, unless the kidneys are so inflamed that complete rest is indicated. Hot water and hot drinks are best in the morning, such as toast water, barley water, cream of tartar, lemon and acid drinks. Unless a dropsical condition is present, one may drink freely of cool water. In acute cases, the patient is put on a diet of from 2 to 3 pints of milk a day, given 1/2 pint every 3 or 4 hours, diluted with 1/3 as much hot water. Complete rest is imperative. In chronic cases, exercise judiciously directed to the extremities, particularly to the legs and the back, will do more than anything to aid the elimination of an excessive accumulation of fluid, as in dropsy. This condition is usually accompanied by constipation and poor circulation, and exercises directed to the liver and bowels aid in carrying off the excess of fluid by way of the intestines. This will rest the kidneys. A cure requires patience and perseverance. In chronic cases, it is also well to follow a milk diet for a number of weeks. The quantity of milk for an exclusive milk diet must depend on the age and size of the patient as well as his ability to exercise. If he is confined to his room, from 10 to 16 glasses of milk a day are sufficient. If he is taking a great deal of exercise, he may take from 18 to 20 glasses of milk a day. If he loses weight on the milk diet, bread and rice may be added, or potato soup, cereals, tapioca, and various gruels. If the milk is not well born, malted milk or pre-digested milk with butter and cream may be substituted. If the casein in the milk is not well digested, cheese must not be used. An egg once or twice a week and fruit and fresh vegetables may be given, but meat should be omitted. A. F. Paty gives the following diet in Bright's disease. Diet: soup, vegetable or fish soup, broths with rice or barley. Fish: raw oysters or clams, fresh fish broiled or boiled. Meats: eat sparingly, chicken, game, fat bacon, fat ham. Farinaceous: stale bread, whole wheat bread, toast, milk toast, biscuits, macaroni, rice, cereals of all kinds. Vegetables: onion, cauliflower, mashed potatoes, mushrooms, lettuce, watercress, spinach, celery, cabbage. Desserts: ripe raw fruits, stewed fruits, rice, tapioca, bread and milk puddings, junkets, cocoa. Liquids: toast water, weak tea, pure water, peptonized milk, malted milk, fresh buttermilk, milk and hot water in equal parts, whey, unfermented grape juice. Avoid fried fish, corned beef, hashes, stews, pork, veal, heavy bread, batter cakes, lamb, mutton, beef, gravies, beans, peas, malt or spirituous liquors, tobacco, coffee, ice cream, cake, pastry. This diet is tentative only and may be modified to suit the individual. If improvement is manifest after a month or two of the restricted diet, steak, roast beef, and eggs may be gradually added. If, when the urine is examined, the use of meat causes a return of albumin, it must be stopped. In these cases, active outdoor exercise, full deep breathing systematically practiced at intervals, a calm, quiet attitude of mind, and care not to overeat and to keep the bowels active will materially aid recovery. End of section 12. Section 13 of What to Eat and When. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by BettyB. What to Eat and When by Susanna Cocroft. Diet in Abnormal Conditions continued. Interference with the action of the kidneys is apt to result in a retention within the system of the elements which they in normal conditions eliminate from the system, such as urea, uric acid, urates, sulfates, phosphates, etc. They are the result of the oxidation and the breaking down of the proteins of the body. If the kidneys do not eliminate these, the result is a systemic poisoning, and the dietetic treatment must be such as will aid them to act freely. Fruits should be used freely. The citrus fruits, lemons, oranges, limes, etc., are the best. They neutralize acids and promote the alkalinity of the blood. When the system shows an excess of uric acid, the chances are that the individual has not been living on a diet containing too large a proportion of protein, but that he has been eating more than he requires of all kinds of foodstuffs. His system thus becomes weakened, and he does not breathe deeply nor exercise sufficiently to oxidize and throw off the waste. Meats, eggs, and legumes should be eliminated from the diet. A free drinking of water, milk with lime water, cereals, buttermilk, kumyas, barley water, toast water, lemonade, orangeade, vegetables, and fruit should form the diet. Exercise and free breathing of fresh air are imperative. All food should be thoroughly masticated. Excess of uric acid. When this condition appears, it is due to too great an amount of animal or nitrogenous food. It causes dizziness, ringing in the ears, general nervousness, and insomnia. Uric acid does not render the urine acid, but when the acidity of the urine is increased due to too much animal food, the tendency of the uric acid to form a crystalline deposit is increased. This deposit, as gravel, may occasion attacks of renal colic or become the basis, when mixed with mucus, for kidney stones or stones in the bladder. Headaches, if due to uric acid, will often cease when animal food is lessened. Too much candy or sweet foods, or too much fat, eaten in connection with much protein, by deranging the liver function, change the character of the urine and favor the production of uric acid, causing such chronic ailments as bronchitis, asthma, severe nerve depression, gout, and neuralgia. The natural relief is obtained by control of the diet, supplying less protein. One may either eliminate the proteins from the diet or may cut down the entire quantity of food. Free elimination through a free action of the kidneys, the pores of the skin, and the lungs is necessary. Systematic exercise, deep breathing, copious drinking of water, and fresh air day and night are the best aids. Exercise and deep breathing promote a free elimination of waste through the pores of the skin, and the free drinking of water creates a greater elimination through the kidneys, thus throwing off the excess of acid. The skins of fruits contain various acids which favor the alkalinity of the blood. Therefore, it is better, when there is an excess of uric acid, to eat unpeeled fruits. Apples eaten raw and unpeeled, because of the acids, are of benefit. Citrus fruits, such as lemons, oranges, and grapefruit, are advised. Pears and other sweet or bland fruits, because of the lack of acid, are less valuable. Pea pods, when young, may be cooked with the peas. String beans, spinach, celery, and asparagus are of value. All rich sauces and gravies must be avoided. Osler remarks that gout is evidence of an overfed, overworked, and consequently clogged machine. It is usually the result of high living. It most often attacks people past middle age who have indulged in large quantities of food, especially the nitrogenous foods, which are not thoroughly oxidized due to sluggish circulation and shallower breathing. The process, imperfectly carried on, allows the accumulation of the waste material which cannot be excreted by the kidneys unless completely transformed by oxidation. These insoluble materials are deposited in the joints, act as irritants, and occasion the attacks of pain, swelling, and tenderness which usually mark the acute condition. It is most common in those who habitually overeat, take little exercise, or who have frequently indulged in alcohol. Sugar and fat in quantities are injurious, as the oxidation of the protein is not carried on as completely when these are in excess. In fact, the entire system is more sluggish. Fat also interferes with gastric digestion as it passes through the stomach unchanged. And if the particles of food have a coat of the fat liquefied by the heat of the stomach, it is difficult for the gastric juice to exert its power. The use of meat and sugars tends to make the urine acid, and the use of vegetables favors its alkalinity, rendering it less acid. Therefore, it becomes necessary to eliminate meat from the diet, to cut down the fats and carbohydrates, and to eat freely of fruits and vegetables. Alcohol is absolutely prohibited. In acute cases, a diet of bread and milk or toast and milk with light vegetable broths should be followed for from 1 to 3 days. In chronic cases, the diet may consist of the following: soups, vegetable broths, fish, fresh fish, shellfish, raw oysters. Meats, it is better to omit all meats. If meat is eaten at all, it should be confined to game, chicken, and fat bacon. Farinaceous, cereals, crackers, dry toast, milk toast, macaroni, graham or whole wheat bread, rye bread, oatmeal, and any of the breakfast foods. Vegetables, celery, lettuce, watercress, all greens, without vinegar, string beans, green peas, potatoes, carrots, and beets. Fruits, all fruits, stewed or fresh. Unpeeled apples are especially recommended. Greens, without vinegar, and unpeeled apples increase the action of the kidneys. Desserts, plain puddings, junket, rice, stewed or fresh fruits. Liquids, pure water, toast water, barley water, buttermilk, malted milk, milk. Eat eggs sparingly, and in severe cases not at all. Avoid alcohol, coffee, tobacco, dried fruits, nuts, cheese, candies, pastries, pies, spices, rich puddings, fried foods, vinegar, pickles, lemons, rhubarb, mushrooms, asparagus, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, gravies, patties, rich soups, lobster, salmon, crabs, mackerel, eel, veal, pork, goose, duck, turkey, salted, dried, potted, or preserved fish or meat, except bacon. It is not sufficient to eliminate the foods to be avoided. To reduce the quantity of food is also necessary. Yet this must be watched, as the diet should not be so rigid as to cause a lowering of vitality. Eating between meals should not be allowed. In an acute attack, the diet should be confined to milk, vegetables, and fruits. This is the result of a serious disturbance of nutrition. Since its presence is made manifest by the appearance of sugar in the urine, it is considered among the derangements of the kidneys. However, one should not be apprehensive of diabetes if the urine test for a day shows sugar. This may be due to an excess of carbohydrates, particularly of sugar, in the diet a day or two previous, and all trace of it may disappear in a day or two. If continued tests show an excess, nutritional disturbances are indicated. The treatment is also entirely dietetic. The most usual form of diabetes is diabetes mellitus. It is supposed to be due to a disturbance in the metabolism of sugar. It may be aided by defective pancreatic ferments, the lack throwing more work on the liver in the metabolism of sugar. The difficulty which confronts the dietitian is to prescribe a diet restricting the carbohydrates which will keep up the body weight and not disturb the nutritive equilibrium. The patient has a craving for sugars and starches, but the system cannot make use of them, and the heat and energy must be supplied by fats. The diet must consist largely of protein and fat. One danger lies in the tendency of acetic and other acids to accumulate in the blood, which affects the nervous system. While as a rule the cravings for certain foods is an indication that the system needs the elements contained in them, the desire of the diabetic patient for sugars and starches must not be indulged more than absolutely necessary because of the inability of the system to utilize them. There is often a distaste for fat, but its use is imperative when it is well borne, because the weight and general vitality must be maintained. If all carbohydrates are eliminated from the diet, the system will often suffer severely. Therefore, the dietitian must determine the diet suited to the individual case, since complicated conditions may exist, and the diet for one patient will work harm to another. The fleshy patient can stand a rigid diet, eliminating sugars and starches, much better than one who is thin and emaciated. A thin, weak patient often cannot endure too rigid a diet. The following list of foods contain least carbohydrates: clear soup of meat without vegetables, all acid fruits, eggs, clams, and lobsters, fresh fish of all kinds, fresh meat of all kinds, and most smoked meat, olive oil, butter, peas, beans, all fresh vegetables except carrots, parsnips, squash, onions, artichokes, cauliflower, cabbage, and asparagus. Fats may be supplied in the yolks of eggs, cream, butter, cheese, bacon, and oily nuts, as butternuts, Brazil nuts, almonds, hazelnuts, walnuts, pecans, all should be well chewed. In beginning a diet, the change must not be too sudden. Potatoes, when they agree, may be used in small quantities as a substitute for bread. At least a week's time should be allowed for the elimination of all sugar and starch. Begin by eliminating sugars and next bread, cereals, anything made with flour, and potatoes. Sometimes it is necessary to begin with an all-milk diet for a day or two. Van Noorden gives the following diet, free from carbohydrates, which has been in general use in Europe and America. Breakfast: tea or coffee, 6 ounces; lean meat, beefsteak, mutton chop, or ham, 4 ounces; eggs, 1 or 2. Lunch: cold roast beef, 6 ounces; celery or cucumbers or tomatoes with salad dressing; coffee without milk or sugar, 2 ounces. Dinner: bouillon, 6 ounces; roast beef, 7 1/2 ounces; green salad, 2 ounces; vinegar, 2 1/2 drachms; butter, 2 1/2 drachms; olive oil, 5 drachms, or spinach with mayonnaise, large portion. Supper, 9 p.m., 2 eggs, raw or cooked. Van Noorden includes alcohol in whiskey in his diet, and most physicians follow the theory that alcohol aids in the digestion and absorption of fats. The need is recognized since fats must be supplied, yet the sweet wines and beers contain sugar while the sour wines contains acids, which may disturb digestion. Derangements of lungs and bronchi. Asthma. In this affection, the free entrance of air into the lungs as well as its free exit is hampered by a condition of the bronchial muscles, the mucous membrane of the bronchi, and the muscles of the diaphragm. The muscles contract spasmodically without due or proper relaxation. This causes a congestion and swelling of the mucous membrane of the bronchi, which still further hamper the ingress and egress of air. Any digestive derangement which causes the formation of gas distends the stomach and intestines, interferes with the free action of the diaphragm, and prevents the free movement of the abdominal muscles. The chemical action of the undigested and fermenting substances in the digestive tract irritates the nerves and may cause the spasm of the muscles. Digestive derangements will often cause the onset of an attack of asthma in those afflicted with this disorder. The correction of the conditions in the stomach and intestinal tract will often ameliorate the attacks. Care must be taken not to overload the stomach and intestines, to eat easily digested foods which agree in the particular case. All food found to cause any digestive disturbance should be avoided. Constipation must be remedied by gentle exercises and massage of the abdomen, as free elimination removes material which might aid in inciting an attack. Many asthmatics are comparatively comfortable during the day, the attacks coming on toward evening or during the night. In this case, the evening meal should be light and easily digested, the heavy meal being taken at noon. Hot, stuffy rooms increase the disorder, and plenty of fresh air should be secured both by night and by day. Many of these individuals make no exertion, fearing to bring on an attack. Exercise, particularly of the lungs in breathing, should be gradual at first and be increased as improvement is shown. Exercises directed to expansion of the deeper cells of the lungs and to equalize the circulation throughout the entire system will call the excess of blood from the bronchial tubes, and in many cases will cause the difficulty to disappear. A forceful, equalized circulation with regulation of digestion will do more for asthma than any known agency. Derangements in digestion common in this affection are due to several conditions. Tuberculosis. The increased temperature is caused by the efforts of the system to counteract the poisons produced by the action of the bacillus. The increase in temperature in the stomach lessens the secretions and the peristaltic action, causing the food to ferment and to be vomited or to pass practically undigested into the intestine, thus throwing an excess of work on the intestinal secretions. The bacilli-laden sputum, if swallowed, is apt to produce disorders of the stomach. This still further complicates the question of digestion. Malnutrition, because of these derangements, increases the unfavorable outlook for the patient in this disease. Hence the diet, especially in chronic cases, is of great importance. When means are ample, the question is much simplified, because by travel, change of scene, and pleasant surroundings, the appetite is stimulated and greater variety in the diet can be gained. For those in moderate circumstances, save when free sanatoriums exist for the care of the tuberculous, it is most difficult to keep the diet from becoming monotonous and wearisome. The appetite, especially in young people, is apt to be capricious, and it is important that the food be served daintily to tempt the patient to eat. Growing children crave sweets, and as these furnish energy, they may be allowed to tuberculous children in moderation if they seem to be well assimilated. Any interference with digestion, however, must be guarded against. It is best to give food in smaller quantities and oftener in order to guard against disturbed digestion from overloading the stomach. For this reason, also, it is better to give the heartiest food during the forenoon when the temperature is lowest. Milk, butter, cream, olive oil, bacon, and cod liver oil furnish the fat needed by the system in the most easily digested form, and should be taken freely if there is no irritation in the stomach which will prevent their assimilation. Variation in their use will often secure greater tolerance. In chronic cases, in which there is little or no fever, the fats are generally well assimilated and are beneficial. The disease causes great wasting, and fats are especially important in counteracting this tendency. They may be given in alternation or be omitted from the diet for a day or two to avoid turning the patient against them. If diarrhea exists, fats must be given guardedly, and if fats produce diarrhea, they must be lessened or omitted until the diarrhea is controlled. If one gains in flesh, the chances are very strong that the case has been wrongly diagnosed, or that the disease, if present, is being overcome. Milk, when it agrees, should form a large part of the diet. A glass may be taken with meals, and 2 glasses between meals. The milk should be sipped slowly. Lime water or carbonated water may be added to aid milk digestion. Buttermilk, made by means of buttermilk tablets, from milk from which the cream has not been removed, or buttermilk mixed with 1/4 cream, kumyas, or cream and water, if relished, may take the place of milk. Eggs are also important aids in the diet, especially the yolk, because of the fat and iron it contains. If they disagree, they may be taken with a few drops of lemon juice, orange juice, or grape juice, as these partially digest the egg. The beaten and strained whites are very easily digested, and in that form may be taken in quantity of from 6 to 12 a day. Tender, juicy meats, especially beef and mutton, may be taken, also meat juices and beef soups. Highly seasoned foods should be avoided. Fresh fish, clams, and oysters are permissible. Cereals, especially the coarse ones that stimulate the bowel movements, if constipation exists, are valuable. Oatmeal, rice, and cornmeal mush are especially good. Also graham or bran bread and zwieback made with bran. If there is diarrhea, bran should not be used. Easily digested vegetables are of value, especially if cooked in little water so that most of the salts and other nutrients which are so frequently boiled out of the vegetable are retained. Baked apples or raw fruits, especially oranges, may be taken the first thing in the morning, or used as a dessert. Grapes, peaches, and other fruits in season may be taken in moderation. Tea and coffee are best omitted. The following constitutes a typical menu in ordinary cases. It must be varied to suit the individual case. Breakfast: fruit, cereal, 2 eggs, poached or boiled, with or without a few slices of bacon, 2 slices of toast or bread, 1/2 ounce of butter, and a glass of milk. 10 a.m. 2 or 3 eggs beaten in a glass of milk. Luncheon: fish, chop, or steak, or some tender meat, 1/2 ounce of butter, 1 or 2 slices of bread, baked potato, or a dish of rice or hominy, green vegetables, or a salad of lettuce or tomato with olive oil, a dessert of custard or junket or some other nutritious dish, and a glass of milk. 3 p.m. Milk and eggs, meat broth and egg, milk and egg custard, or graham crackers and milk. Dinner: soup if desired, a glass of milk, a liberal helping of some special meat, roast beef, lamb, or mutton, chicken or turkey, potatoes, or a farinaceous vegetable, and a green vegetable, dessert, and a small piece of cheese. This menu approximates the number of calories desirable in cases of tuberculosis that have not advanced to a stage in which complete rest is necessary. In that case, a liquid or semi-liquid diet is given. When it is necessary that the diet be less expensive, beans, lentils, and eggs may take the place of meat at some meals, and oleomargarine may be substituted for butter. Milk and eggs, however, in the quantity advised, should be taken if possible. If signs of overfeeding appear, due to the lessened activity of the digestive organs, shown by biliousness, coated tongue, etc., the food may be lessened in quantity until the condition is corrected. If the tongue becomes coated, the mouth should receive care directed. In all cases of weak lungs and chronic lung trouble, the diet should consist of easily digested foods. Those that cause flatulence should be avoided, as the distended stomach presses on the diaphragm and interferes with proper breathing and with the heart action. Derangements of the nerves. No disturbance in any part of the body requires less medicine than a disturbance in the nerves. The correction must come through general hygienic treatment and directing the mind to optimistic thoughts. Regular exercise, alternated with regular rest periods, the formation of the habit of complete nerve relaxation, the general regulation of an easily digested, nutritious diet with deep breathing exercises are the best remedies. The patient should be out of doors as much as possible, and unless too weak, should be employed at light work for mental diversion. In cases of neurasthenia, or tired nerves, all vital organs are more or less affected, because the nerves do not properly direct digestion, absorption, assimilation, or elimination. The excessive use of stimulants, tea, coffee, or alcohol is often an exciting cause because of overstimulation of an already exhausted nervous system. Complete rest of body and mind must be secured. The diet should be light and of easily digested foods, but must be nutritious and taken regularly and systematically. Each case needs individual treatment, and the diet must be that most easily assimilated by the individual. A free, correct breathing of fresh air day and night is imperative. It is important also to thoroughly masticate all food and drink freely of water. A change of thought induced by a change of scene or companions is helpful. One of the most essential treatments of neurasthenia is to surround the patient with love and tenderness, but the patient should be led to avoid self-pity. This sets up a disagreeable trend of thought which relaxes nerve and vital forces and disturbs nutrition. Sympathy, good cheer, and an attitude of courageous optimism are the best nerve tonics. Due to the weakened condition of the nerves, troubles which at other times seem trifles are as mountains and very real. Patience and intelligent sympathy, not apparent pity, are the best of medicines. The tone of the nervous system is quickly altered by the state of mind of the individual. The reaction is a double one, containing a vicious circle. The nerves, disordered from worry, excessive fatigue, or other drains on the vitality, as a persistent pessimistic outlook on life, do not stimulate the natural digestive processes. The faulty digestion may fail to prepare a sufficient amount of food for use by the system. The nerves are thus underfed, which still further increases their inability to send motor and secretory impulses to the digestive and eliminative organs. Emaciation, general debility, and anemia may result. Hence the importance, in the relief of any nervous condition, to see first that the attitude of mind be calm and quiet, with the substitution of thoughts of hope and cheer for those of gloom and depression. The afflicted one must make a brave struggle, because the tired body affects his thoughts as well as his thoughts his body. There is no one food or set of foods which directly affect any nervous trouble, unless this trouble be localized by disturbance in some particular organ. Then the effort must be to correct the difficulty in that organ. Rest is imperative. If thin, a fat-building diet should be followed to store energy-building reserve in the nerve centers. In many cases of nerve debility, the nerves seem to be stronger in the latter part of the day. When this is the case, the hearty meal should be eaten at this time. The condition of the blood is affected by the lack of its necessary ingredients, which may occur through faulty digestion as well as through improper diet. The resultant anemia of the nerves may produce neuralgic pains in any one or several of the tissues and organs, as the stomach, the intestines, the muscles, or the liver, etc. Neuralgia of the liver is sometimes mistaken for gallstone colic. When underlying conditions of disease have been excluded by means of careful testing of the urine and blood, the diet becomes of importance and may result in the disappearance of the pain. These pains occur chiefly in those who take little exercise and use improper food, which does not give the correct proportion of the needed elements to the system. Exercise, as the body is usually weak, should be begun moderately, but as soon as possible be made brisk and active to stimulate the vital organs to a more perfect performance of their function. Plenty of oxygen must be secured by day and night, and thorough elimination be maintained. The diet must be nutritious and richer than is ordinarily taken. Milk, butter, cream, bacon, olive oil, and all fatty food should be freely used if assimilated. Beefsteak, roast beef, fresh vegetables, and eggs are valuable. Cocoa or chocolate, a glass of milk with a beaten egg, or a cup of broth into which an egg has been beaten, may be regularly taken between meals. If the digestion is feeble, light food should first be taken and increased as the system becomes able to assimilate more hearty food. Coffee, tea, highly spiced foods, alcohol, fried food, rich pastry, and much candy or sweet stuffs should be avoided. Pain referred to the liver, if not caused by gallstones, usually indicates overwork of that organ, and fats, sweets, and starches should be avoided to give the liver rest. Pain referred to the stomach is often caused by tobacco smoking or improper food, as too much candy or preserves, or too strong tea or coffee. Attention to the diet will usually relieve this variety of pain. If the pain comes on when the stomach is empty, due to a disorder of the nerves, the food should be lessened in quantity, be light, easily digested, and taken at shorter intervals. Many conditions of the system due to dietetic errors which result in impoverished blood are accompanied by pains in the stomach. These are often neuralgic. Poor assimilation of foods or indigestion produces pain because the tone of the nervous system is affected from the poor blood. Neuralgia of the stomach often occurs in anemic conditions associated with constipation. In these cases, a good, nutritious, but easily digested diet and better elimination will often cure, but as the changes in the blood and nerves are slow, one must be patient and persistent. There is no better nerve tonic than pure air, exercise, cheerful thoughts, and rest. Sweets, fried food, rich sauces, pastry, and highly seasoned food should be avoided. When neuralgia of the stomach due to an underlying condition such as rheumatism, gout, or diabetes occurs, the diet appropriate to the condition will often affect the cure of the neuralgia. Chorea. The diet is of the greatest importance in this difficulty, as it is usually accompanied by anemia. Rest and a very nourishing and easily digested diet are essential. Sometimes a complete rest in bed and a milk diet, or a diet composed largely of milk, is the best means of treatment. If possible, the patient should be isolated and in the care of a trained nurse who is naturally cheerful and bright. Children are especially liable to this malady. They are usually anemic and care should be exercised that they be not overworked in school and that they retire early and get from 10 to 12 hours sleep. Their eyes must be kept from strain and the nervous system not allowed to become tense from too much excitement, as teasing by playmates or the family, etc. They should be given the diet for anemia. Diet in skin diseases. An improper diet or a lowered nerve tone are often shown by the condition of the skin. When the waste of the system is not being properly eliminated through the other excretory organs, the skin is required to throw off more than its normal amount. The muddy complexion in biliousness or the congestion of the facial capillaries in the alcoholic are familiar examples. Overeating, especially of food too rich or too concentrated, causes fermentation from non-digestion or imperfect oxidation, due to too large an amount of nutriment for the amount of oxygen furnished to the tissues. An inactive skin results in an accumulation of fat in the sebaceous glands, with clogging of the ducts. Germ infection in these clogged glands often results in pimples and boils. An excess of acid in the secretion of the sweat glands irritates the skin and causes eruptions. Chronic skin troubles are always increased and made more troublesome when there are errors in the diet, and they are often benefited and in some cases cured when the dietetic errors are corrected. Skin troubles often occur when for any reason the nervous system is run down, because the weakened nerves cause the tissues or organs they supply to become inactive. The skin thus becomes affected with the rest of the body and derangements of its function appear. Increasing nerve tone will result in a disappearance of the skin disorders. This takes time. All rich food and highly seasoned preparations, veal, pork, tea, coffee, pastry, too much sweets and fats, and any fruits and vegetables that cause flatulence should be avoided. A diet of fruit, water, and graham bread for 3 or 4 days, every week or two, daily exercise, and deep breathing of pure air will usually clear the skin. The skin of the face is materially cleared by the use of facial exercises, which promote its activity and the elimination of waste. Exercises for increasing the tone of the skin and the muscles are as essential for the face as for the body. In all skin troubles, alcohol must be prohibited. Urticaria, hives, is characterized by distressing itching and may be caused by any article of food which disagrees. A more or less irritant food, or one difficult of digestion, such as strawberries, shellfish, pork, cheese, and sausage, are the foods which most usually produce it, if taken into an inactive stomach. When the intestines are in a sluggish condition, the stomach does not act well, and any food which does not digest properly is liable to excite an attack. It is remedied by eating very lightly, by fasting for a day or two, by drinking much water, exercising, breathing deeply, and securing activity of the bowels. Care must be taken to avoid foods known to disagree. Eczema. The cause of this disorder is often difficult to ascertain, but it is aggravated or relapses occur when too much or too rich food is eaten. The skin is not able to dispose of all the material sent to it. It often occurs in those who are excessive eaters of meat. The diet may have to be confined to fruit, bread and milk, or crackers and milk for a few weeks. Meat, if allowed, should be taken sparingly and not oftener than once a day. Better only every other day. Beef and chicken are the preferable meats. If no improvement occurs, or if it be slight, meat should be omitted altogether. Eggs may be substituted for meat. A little fresh fruit, if thoroughly ripe, may be taken, but all made desserts must be avoided and very little sweets used. Cracked wheat or other wheat cereal with a little cream may be eaten. Oatmeal may provoke an attack because of the amount of fat in it. Foods may cause an attack in one case that have no detrimental action in another. Skin eruptions, eczema-like, often occur if for any reason the diet has been too limited, as in the semi-starvation seen in poor children. In these cases, a more nutritious diet will often cure. Bananas, apples, cabbage, or fried foods often cause a temporary attack or aggravate an existing condition. The food must be thoroughly masticated, must be taken at regular times, and not in excess. As this condition sometimes accompanies other diseases, any underlying condition must be sought, but all diet should be as simple as the needs of the system will bear. The foods which are found to increase the irritation of the skin are the ones to be avoided in each case. The all-prevalent American habit of eating fried food often produces an intense itching of the skin, pruritus, in various parts of the body. It occurs often in those who eat food highly seasoned with pepper or other condiments. The articles of food causing the overstimulation must be avoided, and all fried food, pastries, or food containing much fat must be greatly lessened or omitted altogether. Itching is sometimes caused during the change of seasons due to the effect of the changing temperature on the nerves of the skin. To rub the skin with oil for 2 or 3 days to soften the dead cells and to aid their removal from the surface will secure a better circulation in the skin and help to eliminate the cause of the itching. A free drinking of water, fresh air, and exercise will help the condition. Acne. The rapidly changing system of the growing boy and girl is especially liable to disorders due to improper eating, irregular habits, worry, lack of rest, or improper food. Eruptions, especially on the face, appear as a result. The sebaceous glands are especially active, and any alteration in the structure of the blood due to deranged digestive processes and defective elimination by the skin causes too great an amount of deposit in the fat glands. Their contents become hardened and infected by germs, with consequent irritation and reddening, and the condition known as acne is the result. Once well established, it is difficult to cure, but it often rapidly improves under a simple diet, rested nerves, cheerful kind thoughts, and better digestion and elimination. The food should be thoroughly masticated. Young people are prone to eat too hastily and thus not thoroughly mix the food with saliva. If careful attention is paid to mastication of the food, water at meals is an aid to digestion. Water should be taken freely between meals, on rising, and before retiring for its diuretic and laxative effect. All candy and sweets, hot breads, cornbread, pastry, soups with much fat, rich hashes and sauces, fried food, pork and veal should be eliminated from the diet. A badly blotched face is an embarrassment, and no restriction in the diet should be deemed a hardship as a means to an improved digestion, increased mental vigor, and improved health. A pimple on the face should be treated as antiseptically as a boil. The pus from a pimple which has come to a head should not be allowed to infect the surrounding skin. Infection may take place from towels or washcloths used by one afflicted with acne. Care should be exercised to sterilize the surrounding skin by peroxide of hydrogen or alcohol before a pimple is opened, and its contents should be taken up with absorbent cotton. A pimple should never be severely squeezed, as the skin will be irritated and other pimples may result. Often the infection from one pimple is spread by the hands or by the washcloth. Care should be taken to avoid this. Exercise directed to the facial muscles and to the liver and digestive organs, deep breathing, plenty of oxygen by night and day, wholesome thoughts, plenty of sleep, and simple food will eliminate or improve most skin difficulties. Care should be taken by frequent bathing and friction baths to aid the eliminative work of the skin. Since the medical profession is unable to determine just what rheumatism is, it is difficult to prescribe a diet. The theory so long believed that it is caused by an excess of uric acid in the system is no longer held by most of the advanced physicians. Uric acid, however, sometimes accompanies the disease. Some authorities hold that it is a nerve difficulty, others that it is caused by an excess of lactic acid. Others hold that it is caused by infection from the tonsils and the gums. Assuming that it is due to the failure of the system to promptly eliminate its waste, whether this failure to eliminate be through a weakened condition of the nerves and the consequent failure to properly direct the body activities, the correction of the difficulty must lie in building up the general vitality and in aiding the system in its elimination. Hot sweat baths, a free use of water, and a free use of fruits and fruit juices, particularly the citrus fruits, such as lemons, oranges, limes, etc., are desirable in moderation because they increase the alkalinity of the blood and because of their diuretic effect. Lemonade, orangeade, and all fresh fruits and vegetables are diuretic. The diet should be cut down in quantity. If an excess of uric acid exists, meat may be eliminated and the suggestions given in the diet for gout may be followed. The food must be plain and well cooked, not highly seasoned, and the amount must be confined to the needs of the system as shown by the general condition. Regular exercise until the body is thoroughly heated, deep breathing of pure air day and night, and a copious drinking of water are necessary. Leanness. No definite diet can be given here for flesh building because a lack of sufficient fat to round out the figure is due to faulty digestion or assimilation. It may be that the strength of the muscles and nerves of the stomach, liver, and intestines should be built up by exercises and deep breathing, and it may be that the habit of nerve relaxation must be established. When the nerves are tense, much nourishment is consumed in nervous energy, and the nerves to the digestive organs and muscles being disordered, they interfere with digestion and assimilation. It is apparent that the cause of the lack of flesh must first be corrected. Merely to give a fat-building diet may overload deranged digestive organs with sugars, starches, and fats, further weakening them. Often leanness is due to inability to digest the starches or sugars, and when this is the case, the condition must be remedied by strengthening the digestive organs through exercises for the muscles of the stomach and intestines, exercises to create a free activity of the liver and to strengthen the nerves controlling digestion. Deep breathing habits to ensure sufficient oxygen to put the waste in condition for elimination are necessary. Most often sufficient food is eaten, but due to nerve tension or to sluggish circulation, particularly through the vital organs, it is not assimilated. Usually, however, bodily flesh may be increased by increasing the liquids and the carbohydrate consumption, and also the fat if these are assimilated. If habits of life, overwork, improper food, unhealthy thoughts, nerve exhaustion, excessive nerve tension, or disease are responsible, they first must be corrected. Often the nerve tension must be relaxed by change of habit of both body and mind before the flesh will accumulate. There must be no mental strain and plenty of sleep must be secured. If they can be assimilated, the diet should contain soups, butter, milk, cream, cocoa, chocolate, well-cooked cereals as oatmeal, bread, tapioca, or rice puddings with cream and sugar, bread, potatoes, leguminous foods as peas and beans, cake, honey, especially sweet fruits, carrots, parsnips, and other vegetables, meat not oftener than once a day. Vinegar and too much spice, pastry, coffee, and tea should be avoided. The free drinking of liquid is most important. Obesity is caused by a disturbed balance of nutrition, occasioned often by more food being taken in than the body requires. The resultant fat is deposited in and among the tissues. It is most often seen in those in middle life of sedentary habit who continue to eat as heartily as ever without using a little thought to determine the actual body needs for food. An excess of fat is often seen in light eaters, however. This is usually due to a weakness of nerve tissue which does not direct the regular activities of the body, digestion, assimilation, elimination, etc., with sufficient force to burn up the normal amount of fat in automatic activities. In all cases, breathing is usually faulty, oxidation is incomplete, and little exercise for the vital organs is taken. Anemia may exist in such individuals. The body fat is formed from various elements in food, and a food which may cause obesity in one individual may not produce it in another. Fat meats, alcoholic drinks, or the excessive use of starches and sugars may cause it. The food at fault in each case must be determined and largely reduced or eliminated from the diet. Many obesity cures are in existence and have had considerable vogue from time to time. Anti-fat remedies are dangerous as they lower the vitality of the system and render it liable to be attacked by disease. All such remedies act by decreasing the appetite and causing impairment of the digestion. The rational method is to limit both the amount of food and the liquid to be taken, to increase oxidation by deep breathing and exercise. By restricting the carbohydrates and fats consumed, the body calls on that stored in the tissues. In obesity, unless there is an underlying condition of disease, the amount of water should be limited while reducing, and none should be drunk with the meals. Soup, milk, and all juicy fruits, and all foods made from cereals should be taken sparingly. Sugar must usually be forbidden, and fat in the food limited to a little butter. One need not starve under this treatment, for the diet may be varied enough to prevent monotony even though restricted. Fresh green vegetables, fruit, and lean meat should form the main ingredients of the diet, but if gastric disturbances arise, the diet must be varied to correct them. Meat should be eaten but once a day. Extremes in diet should be strictly avoided. A sudden restriction of diet produces changes in the blood which may do harm. For this reason, the amount of food taken should be gradually but steadily reduced, and one article after another eliminated until the system becomes accustomed to the reduction. Thorough elimination must be secured through exercise and deep breathing. All alcoholic liquors must be omitted. All diets for obesity must be prescribed for the individual condition. A diet suited to one person may be entirely unsuited to another. For this reason, and because of the danger of one following a diet which may be unsuited to the condition, diets for obesity are not given here. Exercise and deep breathing must constitute an appreciable part of reduction methods to cause a combustion of the fat liberated. These are the natural scientific means of reduction. If one reduces by diet alone, the excess of fat may not come from the part desired. One is likely to show the results first in the face and neck. One should exercise the parts desired to be reduced so as to oxidize the fat stored about these particular tissues. A large number of the obese are afflicted with rheumatism, sluggish livers, sluggish action of the intestines, and weak nerves, and the diet must be governed accordingly. The regulation of food for reduction of flesh must also be governed by age, sex, by the manner of breathing, and by the amount of daily exercise. The food must be regulated in accordance with the quantity of carbohydrates and fats daily consumed in heat and energy. A rational study of the needs of the system and a persistent following of the indicated regimen will result in a steady reduction, renewed vitality, and a sense of being fit. The better elimination secured by exercise and increased oxygen will aid the muscles to release the fat which may have caused them to become flabby. Reduction must not be accomplished too suddenly, but it can be gained by a little self-denial and determination. One who carries too much fat is much more liable to gout, rheumatism, apoplexy, high blood pressure, asthma, and bronchial affections. Feeding the convalescent. When an individual is recovering from an illness, the appetite often becomes excessively active, and his demands for food, if yielded to by the family or attendant, may produce digestive derangements from which recovery is slow. On the other hand, too much food is often urged on the convalescent from a mistaken idea that large quantities of food are necessary in order to rebuild the enfeebled system. Care must be taken not to return too rapidly to a solid diet when a liquid diet has been followed for some time. The digestive system shares in the general weakness and must not be overloaded. The more easily digested foods, as ice cream, milk, tapioca, crackers and cream or cream toast, cream soups and meat broths thickened with breadcrumbs rolled from toasted bread, custards, stewed fruits, cornmeal, mush, in some conditions cornstarch blancmange, boiled rice, and poached eggs may be given. Later, when meat is added to the diet, it should be scraped or finely minced so as to give the stomach as little work as possible until it regains its tone. Potatoes, if allowed, should be baked or mashed. Sweetbreads in cream, sponge cake, or lady fingers with light cream may also be allowed. At least a week should be taken in returning to a solid diet, and the orders of the physician must be strictly followed. Pickles, nuts, or solid meats should not be allowed. They will often occasion a return of fever and possibly a relapse. After typhoid fever or other lingering illness, the appetite is usually much increased, but great care must be exercised not to allow solid food before the condition of the stomach and intestines shows that danger is past. It is usual not to allow solid food in typhoid fever for 2 weeks after the fever has disappeared. It is possible to make great variety in the diet, even if it be light and easily digested, and common sense must govern in the kind as well as the quantity of food allowed the convalescent. Scraped beef or scraped chicken may be seasoned, lightly pan broiled, and made into a sandwich. The first solid meat may be creamed sweetbread, a bit of broiled tenderloin steak, or breast of chicken. It is better to give small amounts, both because of the lessened work of digestion and because large amounts of food often destroy rather than aid the appetite. If the appetite is capricious or lacking, it needs to be stimulated by food appetizingly prepared and daintily served. A sloppy tray with half-cold tea or coffee will often cause complete loss of appetite. The face and hands of an invalid should always be bathed before a meal. The fresh feeling induced is often an aid to the appetite. The mouth should be carefully cleansed after eating in order that no fermenting food particles may be carried into the stomach to cause disturbance there. Swabbing the mouth with cotton dipped in an alkaline wash, or rinsing the mouth with Listerine and water or peroxide of hydrogen and water will aid greatly to the comfort of the sick, especially when the tongue is coated and the mouth bitter. Great care should be taken not to allow breadcrumbs to fall into or under the bedclothes, as a small breadcrumb is often a source of great discomfort. The skin is especially sensitive, and a small breadcrumb may so disturb the mind as to cause a patient otherwise doing well to become restless and disturbed. The invalid frequently forgets to ask for water, and the attendant should see that a sufficient amount of water is taken. A glass of water should be placed where it is within easy reach, and it should not be allowed to become warm. Cool water is one of the prime requisites in the invalid's dietary. End of section 13. Section 14 of What to Eat and When. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by BettyB. What to Eat and When by Susanna Cocroft. Recipes for foods for invalids and semi-invalids. The purpose is not to give such recipes as are found in ordinary cookbooks, but simply to suggest foods useful for invalids, for semi-invalids, or for chronic abnormal conditions of digestive organs. Water. Pure and carbonated, mineral waters containing iron, sulfur, lithium, etc. Hot drinks should be served at a temperature of from 122 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. When water is used as a hot drink, it should be freshly drawn, brought to a boil, and used at once. This sterilizes and develops a better flavor. Cold water should be thoroughly cooled, but not iced, unless ice water is sipped very slowly and held in the mouth until the chill is off. Water is best cooled by placing the receptacle on ice rather than by putting ice in the water. Fruit juices. Under fruit juices are grape juice, apple juice, currant juice, pineapple juice, orangeade, and lemonade. They are especially grateful to fever patients and are often used to stimulate the appetite. They are particularly valuable for the acids which they contain, which aid the action of the kidneys and the peristaltic action of the digestive tract. They also increase the alkalinity of the blood. Apples contain malic acid, lemons citric acid, and grapes tartaric acid. The ferment in the ripe pineapple juice aids in the digestion of proteins. Lemonade. Wash and wipe a lemon. Cut a slice from the middle into 2 pieces to be used in the garnish before serving. Then squeeze the juice of the rest of the lemon into a bowl, keeping back the seeds. Add sugar and boiling water. Cover and put on ice to cool, strain, and pour into a glass. Fruit lemonade. To change and vary the flavor, fresh fruit of all kinds may be added to strong lemonade, using boiling water as directed above. Egg lemonade. Beat an egg thoroughly, add 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and gradually pour in 1 cup of cold water. Stir until smooth and well mixed. Serve thoroughly cold. This drink is very easily digested, the lemon having partly digested the egg. 2 tablespoons of sherry or port may be added. Bran lemonade. Mix 1/4 cup of wheat bran with 2 cups of cold water. Allow this to stand overnight, and in the morning add the juice of a lemon. Pineapple lemonade. Mix 1/2 cup of grated pineapple with the juice of 1 lemon and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Add 1/2 cup of boiling water, put on ice until cool, then add 1 cup of ice cold water. Strain and serve. Grape lemonade. To 1 cup of lemonade, made as directed above, rather sweet, add 1/2 cup of grape juice. Effervescing lemonade. To the juice of 1 large lemon, add a lump or 2 of sugar which has been rubbed on the rind. Pour on it half a pint of cold or ice water. Add half a teaspoonful of bicarbonate of soda after it has been placed in the tumbler. Orangeade. 1 orange, 1 teaspoonful of sugar, 3/4 of a coffee cup of water. Wash and wipe the orange. Squeeze the juice into the sugar. Add the cold water which has previously been boiled. Strain. Apple water. Slice 1 pound of apples. Put in a jar with 1/4 of a pound of brown sugar. Pour over apples and sugar 1 gallon of boiling water. When cool, put the apples through a colander. Bottle, but do not cork. Keep in a cool place. May be poured over toasted bread. Mixed fruit drink. Mix 1/4 cup of grated pineapple, the juice of half a lemon, the juice of half an orange, 1 cup of boiling water, and sugar to taste. Put on the ice until cool. Strain and add more cold water and sugar according to taste. Pineapple juice. Pour 1/2 cup of pineapple juice over crushed ice and serve in a dainty glass. This is especially helpful in cases of weak digestion and in some throat troubles. As stated above, the pineapple aids protein digestion. Lemon whey. Heat 1 cup of milk in a small saucepan over hot water or in a double boiler. Add 2 tablespoonfuls of lemon juice. Cook without stirring until the whey separates. Strain through cheesecloth and add 2 teaspoonfuls of sugar. Serve hot or cold. Garnish with small pieces of lemon. Wine whey may be made in the same way, using 1/4 cup of sherry wine to 1 cup of hot milk. Grape juice, apple juice, and currant juice are tonics and make a dainty variety for the sick room. They should be used according to their strength, usually about 1/3 juice to 2/3 water. They should be kept cold and tightly corked until ready to serve. Grape lithia. Add 4 ounces of lithia water to 1 ounce of grape juice and 2 teaspoonfuls of sugar. Grape nectar. Boil together 1 pound of sugar and 1/2 pint of water until it begins to thread. Remove from the fire, and when cool, add the juice of 6 lemons and 1 quart of grape juice. Let stand overnight. Serve with ice water, Apollinaris, or plain soda water. Tea punch. Pour boiling lemonade, sweetened to taste, over tea leaves. Allow the liquid to stand until cool. Then strain and serve with shaved ice and slices of lemon. This makes a delicious cooling drink for hot weather. Liquid food. Under this heading such liquids are given as are actual foods. Milk. Milk is a complete food and a perfect food for infants, but not a perfect food for adults. It may be used as whole or skimmed, peptonized, boiled, sterilized, pasteurized. Milk with lime water, Vichy, or Apollinaris, with equal parts of farinaceous liquids. Albuminized milk with white of egg. Milk with egg yolk, flavored with vanilla, cinnamon, or nutmeg. Milk flavored with coffee, cocoa, or meat broth. Milk punch, milk lemonade. Kumis, kefir or whey, with lemon juice as above. Milk and cinnamon. Boil in 1 pint of new milk sufficient cinnamon to flavor it and sweeten with white sugar. Egg preparations. These consist of albumin water, diluted white of egg flavored with fruit juice, egg lemonade, egg orangeade, egg with meat broth, egg with coffee and milk, chocolate eggnog. Often the white of egg dissolved in water or milk is given when the yolk cannot be digested because of the amount of fat which it contains. When one is inclined to biliousness, the egg is better digested if beaten in wine. The albuminous or egg drinks are best prepared cold. Eggnog. To make eggnog, separate the white and the yolk. Beat the yolk with 3/4 of a tablespoon of sugar and a speck of salt until creamy. Add 3/4 of a cup of milk and 1 tablespoonful of brandy. Beat the white until foamy, add to the above mixture, and serve immediately. A little nutmeg may be substituted for the brandy. The eggs and milk should be chilled before using. Eggnog is very nutritious. Egg broth. Beat the yolk of 1 egg, add 1 tablespoonful of sugar and a speck of salt. Add 1 cup of hot milk and pour it on gradually. Flavor with nutmeg. Dried and rolled breadcrumbs may be added, or beef, mutton, or chicken broth may be used in place of the milk, and the sugar may be omitted. The whole egg may be used if desired. This is very delicious made with beef broth instead of hot milk. Pineapple juice or coffee may be used. Coffee eggnog. 1 egg, 1 1/4 teaspoons of sugar, 1/2 scant cup of milk or cream, 1/2 scant cup of coffee. Egg malted milk. Mix 1 tablespoonful of Horlick's malted milk with 1 tablespoonful of crushed fruit and 1 egg. Beat for 5 minutes, strain, and add 20 drops of acid phosphate, 1 tablespoonful of crushed ice, and 3/4 cup of ice water. A grating of nutmeg may be used for flavor. Grape yolk. Separate the white and the yolk of an egg. Beat the yolk, add the sugar, and let the yolk and sugar stand while the white of the egg is thoroughly whipped. Add 2 tablespoonfuls of grape juice to the yolk and pour this onto the beaten white, blending carefully. Have all ingredients chilled before blending and serve cold. Albuminized grape juice. Put 2 tablespoonfuls of grape juice into a dainty glass with pure chopped ice. Beat the white of 1 egg, turn into the glass, sprinkle a little sugar over the top, and serve. Cream of tartar water. Dissolve a teaspoonful or a teaspoonful and a half of cream of tartar in a pint of boiling water. Flavor with lemon peel and sugar. Strain and drink when cold. Farinaceous beverages. These are all made by slowly cooking cereals, such as barley, rice, oatmeal, etc., in a large quantity of boiling water from 2 to 3 hours, straining off the liquid and seasoning to taste. They are particularly valuable when only a small amount of nutriment can be assimilated. Since the chief ingredient is starch, long cooking is necessary to make soluble the starch globules, so that it can be more readily digested. Since these drinks are given only in case of weak digestion, It is important that they be taken slowly and held in the mouth until they are thoroughly mixed with the saliva. Barley water, infant feeding. Mix 1 teaspoonful of barley flour with 2 tablespoonfuls of cold water until it is a smooth paste. Put in the top of a double boiler and add gradually 1 pint of boiling water. Boil over direct heat 5 minutes, stirring constantly. Then put into a double boiler over boiling water and cook 15 minutes longer. This is used as a milk diluent for normal infants and to check diarrhea. For children or adults, use 1/2 teaspoonful of barley or rice flour, 1 cup of boiling water, and 1/4 teaspoonful of salt. Cream or milk and salt may be added for adults, or lemon juice and sugar according to the condition. Barley water is an astringent and used to check the bowels when they are too loose. Barley water, Bartholomew. Wash 2 ounces of pearl barley with cold water. Then boil it for 5 minutes in some fresh water and throw both waters away. Then pour on 2 quarts of boiling water and boil it down to a quart. Stir and skim occasionally. Flavor with lemon rind. Add sugar to taste, but do not strain unless the patient requests it. Rice water or mucilage of rice. Thoroughly wash 1 ounce of rice with cold water. Then soak for 3 hours in a quart of water kept at a tepid heat, stirring from time to time, and afterwards boil slowly for an hour and strain. This is useful in dysentery, diarrhea, and irritable states of the alimentary canal. It may be sweetened and flavored in the same way as barley water. Flaxseed tea. 1/2 cupful of flaxseed to 1 quart of boiling water. Boil 30 minutes and let stand near the fire to thicken. Strain, add lemon juice and sugar to taste. Rice water. Wash 2 tablespoonfuls of rice, add 3 cups of cold water, and soak 30 minutes. Then heat gradually and cook 1 hour until the rice is tender. Strain through muslin, reheat, and dilute with boiling water or hot milk to the consistency desired. Season with salt. Sugar may be added if desired, and cinnamon, if allowed, may be cooked with it as a flavor. 1 teaspoonful of stoned raisins may be added to the rice before boiling if there is no bowel trouble. Oatmeal water. Mix 1 tablespoon of oatmeal with 1 tablespoonful of cold water. Add a speck of salt and stir into it a quart of boiling water. Boil for 3 hours, replenishing the water as it boils away. Strain through a fine sieve or cheesecloth. Season and serve cold. Sufficient water should be kept to keep the drink almost as thin as water. Toast water. Toast thin slices of stale bread in the oven. Break up into crumbs. Add 1 cup of boiling water and let it stand for an hour. Rub through a fine strainer. Season with a little salt. Milk or cream and sugar may be added if desirable. This is valuable in cases of fever or extreme nausea. Sago soup. Stew 2 ounces of the best sago in a pint of water until it is quite tender. Mix with half a pint of good boiling cream and the yolks of 2 fresh eggs. Put into it 1 quart of essence of beef. Mix thoroughly. The beef essence must be heated separately and mixed while both mixtures are hot. This must be served warm. Crust coffee. Dry crusts of brown bread in the oven until they are hard and crisp. Pound or roll them and pour boiling water over. Let soak for 15 minutes, then strain carefully through a fine sieve. Meat juices. Meat juice may be prepared in 3 ways. 1. Broil quickly or even scorch a small piece of beef. Squeeze out the juice with a lemon squeezer previously dipped in boiling water. Catch the juice in a hot cup. Season and serve. If desired to heat it further, place the cup in hot water. 2. Broil quickly, cut up and put the small pieces into a glass jar. Set the covered jar in a pan of cold water. Heat gradually for an hour, never allowing the water to come to a boil. Strain and press out the clear red juice. Season and serve. 1 pound of beef yields 8 tablespoonfuls of juice. 3. Grind raw beef and place in a lightly covered jar with 1 gill of cold water to a pound of beef. Stand it on ice overnight and squeeze through a bag. Strain, season, and serve. Meat tea. Meat tea is made by using a pound of meat to a pint of water. Grind the meat, place in a jar, and cover with cold water. Set the jar in an open kettle of water and cook for 2 hours or more, not allowing the water to boil. Strain by squeezing through a bag, skim off the fat, and season. Meat broth. Meat broth is made from meat and bone, with or without vegetables. The proportion is a quart of water to a pound of meat. Cut the meat into small pieces, add the cold water, and simmer until the quantity is reduced one half. Strain, skim, and season with salt. Chicken, veal, mutton, and beef may be used in this way. It may be seasoned with onions, celery, bay leaves, cloves, carrots, parsnips, rice, barley, or tapioca. Stale breadcrumbs may be added. Mutton and chicken broth. Cut up a chicken or a pound of mutton. Because it is free from fat, put into cold water to cover, and let stand on ice 2 or 3 hours. Cook over a slow fire until the meat falls from the bone. Strain, cool, skim off the fat, salt to taste, and allow to cool. This may be served hot or cold. Broth for the sick. To 1 pound of chopped lean meat of any kind, except pork or veal, add 1 pint of cold water or 1 pint and a half on ice. Let stand in a covered glass fruit jar for from 4 to 6 hours. Cook for 3 hours in a closed jar placed in a kettle of water. Strain, cool, skim off the fat, clear with a beaten egg, season to taste. This may be given warm or cold. Beef tea and oatmeal. 2 tablespoonfuls of oatmeal and 2 of cold water. Mix thoroughly, add a pint of good beef tea which has been brought to the boiling point. Boil together for 5 minutes. The oatmeal must have been previously cooked for a long time. It may be taken from that prepared for the morning meal. Soups. Clear soups are made by cooking raw meat or vegetables or both together slowly for a long time, then straining the liquid. The flavor may be changed by browning the meat or vegetables in butter before adding the water. Cream soups are made in the proportion of 1 quart of vegetables, such as corn, peas, beans, tomatoes, celery, or asparagus, to 1 pint of water and adding 1 pint of milk. Cook the vegetables thoroughly in water and mash through a colander. To this water and pulp add a cream sauce made in the proportion of 4 tablespoonfuls of flour, 4 tablespoonfuls of butter, and 1 pint of milk. For vegetables poor in starch or protein, add 2 tablespoonfuls of flour, 2 tablespoonfuls of butter, and a pint of milk for those rich in protein. Season to taste. Tomato acid should be counteracted by the addition of 1/8 tablespoonful of soda before the milk is added. Potato soup may be flavored with onion or celery or both. Semi-solid foods. The following lists of foods are given for ready reference. Jellies. A. Meat jellies and gelatin, veal, beef, chicken, mutton. B. Starch jellies, flavored with fruit, cornstarch, arrowroot, sago, tapioca. C. Fruit jellies and gelatin. Custards. A. Junkets of milk or milk and egg, rennet curdled, flavored with nutmeg, etc. B. Egg, milk custard, boiled or baked. C. Cornstarch, tapioca, boiled custard. D. Frozen custard, New York ice cream. Gruels, farinaceous. A. Milk gruels. B. Water gruels. Jellies. Meat jellies are made in 2 ways. 1. Cook soup meat containing gristle and bones slowly for a long time, in just enough water to cover. Strain and set the liquid away in a mold to cool and set. If desired, bits of shredded meat may be added to the liquid before molding. 2. Use meat broth and gelatin in the proportion of 1 tablespoon gelatin to 3/4 of a cup of hot broth. Pour into mold and set on ice. Starch jellies. Starch jellies are made by cooking in a pint of fruit juice or water until clear. 2 tablespoonfuls of tapioca, arrowroot, sago, cornstarch, or flour. Sweeten to taste. If water is used, fresh fruit may be used either in the jelly or in a sauce poured over the jelly. Fruit jellies. These are made 1. Of fruit juice and sugar in equal quantities, cooked until it will set when cooled. 2. Of fruit juice and gelatin in the proportion of 1 tablespoon of gelatin to 3/4 of a cup of fruit juice, or 1/2 box gelatin to 1 1/2 pints of juice. Sugar to taste. Made tea or coffee or cocoa or lemonade may be used in the same proportion. Custards. These are made with 1 milk, 2 milk and eggs, 3 milk, egg, and some farinaceous substances as rice, cornstarch, tapioca. In the first, the coagulum is produced by the addition of rennet; in the other two, by the application of heat. Dissolve in a cup of lukewarm milk (never warmer) a tablespoon of sugar or caramel syrup. Add a quarter of a junket tablet, previously dissolved in a tablespoon of cold water. Stir a few times, add vanilla, nuts, or nutmeg if desired. Pour into a cup and set aside to cool and solidify. This may be served plain or with whipped cream or boiled custard. Egg milk custard. When eggs are used for thickening, not less than 4 eggs should be used to a quart of milk. More eggs make it richer. Snowballs. Heat 1 pint of milk with sugar to taste. Beat the whites of 3 eggs stiff, then beat in 1 1/2 tablespoonfuls of powdered sugar. Drop by spoonfuls into the hot milk, turn in 3 minutes, and take out. Beat yolks of the eggs, pour the hot milk over them, and allow to thicken. Do not boil. Arrange snowballs in dish and pour custard over. Serve cool. Boiled custard. 1 pint of milk, 2 eggs, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/2 saltspoon of salt. Scald the milk, add the salt and sugar, and stir until dissolved. Beat the eggs very thick and smooth. Pour the boiling milk on the eggs slowly, stirring all the time. Pour the mixture into a double boiler, set over the fire, and stir for 10 minutes. Add flavoring. As soon as a thickening of the mixture is noticed, remove from the fire, pour into a dish, and set away to cool. This custard makes cup custard. The sauce for such puddings is snow pudding, and when decorated with spoonfuls of beaten egg white, makes floating island. Baked custard. Proceed as in boiled custard, but instead of pouring into a double boiler, pour into a baking dish. Set the dish in a pan of water, place in the oven, and bake until the mixture is set in the middle. Farinaceous custards. Make like boiled custard, using 1 less egg, and adding 1/4 cup of farina, tapioca, cornstarch, arrowroot, or cooked rice to the hot milk and egg. Sago should be soaked overnight before using. Tapioca should be soaked 1 hour before using. Coffee custard. Scald 1 tablespoon of ground coffee in milk and strain before proceeding as for boiled custard. Chocolate custard. Add 1 square of grated chocolate to the milk. Caramel custard. Melt the dry sugar until golden brown, add the hot milk, and when dissolved proceed as before. Bake. Milk for puddings or stewed fruit. Ringer. Boil a small piece of lemon rind and 2 cloves in a pint of milk. Mix half a teaspoonful of arrowroot in a little cold milk and add it to the boiled milk. Stir until about the consistency of cream. Beat up the yolks of 3 eggs in a little milk. Beat into the hot milk taken off the fire, and as it cools, add the eggs and a tablespoonful of orange flower water, stirring it constantly until quite cool. Keep in a very cool place until required for use. Bread jelly. Pour boiling water on stale bread and allow it to soak until soft. Pour off the water, add fresh water to cover, and boil until stiff and until it becomes jelly-like when it cools. It may be eaten with milk or cream. Solid foods suitable for invalids. Toasts. A. Cream toast. B. Milk toast. C. Water toast. Creams. A. Plain. B. Whipped. C. Ice cream. Oils. A. Plain olive, cottonseed, or nut. B. Butter. C. Emulsion as mayonnaise. D. Cod liver oil, plain or emulsified. Cereals. A. Porridges and mushes. Oatmeal, cornmeal, wheat, rice, etc. B. Dry preparations. Shredded wheat biscuit, cornflakes, puffed rice, puffed wheat, Triscuit. Breads. A. Plain. White, graham, Nutrimeal, whole wheat, brown, rye, etc. B. Toasts. Dry, buttered, Zwieback. C. Crackers. Soda, graham, oatmeal, Boston butter, milk. D. Biscuits. Yeast biscuits, 24 hours old, baking powder biscuit, beaten biscuit. Egg preparations. A. Boiled, poached, scrambled, baked. B. Omelets. C. Soufflés of meat and of potatoes. Meats. A. Beef or mutton, broiled or roasted. B. Chicken, turkey, or game, broiled or roasted. C. Fish, broiled, boiled, or baked. D. Oysters, canned, stewed, etc. E. Clams, chowder, broiled, or baked. Vegetables. A. Potatoes, baked, boiled, creamed, or scalloped. B. Sweet potatoes, baked or boiled. C. Green peas, plain or creamed. D. Lima beans, plain or creamed. String beans, plain or creamed. Cauliflower, plain or creamed. Carrots, parsnips. Fruits. A. Fresh, oranges, grapes, melons, etc. B. Stewed, apples, plums, apricots, pears, berries, etc. C. Baked, apples, bananas, pears. D. Canned, peaches, apricots, plums, pears, etc. E. Preserved, peaches, plums, quinces, etc. Gruels. Gruels are a mixture of grain or flour with either milk or water. They require long cooking and may be flavored with sugar, nutmeg, cinnamon, or almond. Take the meal or flour, oatmeal, 2 tablespoons, or cornmeal, 1 tablespoon, or arrowroot, 1½ tablespoons. Sift it slowly into 1½ cups boiling water. Simmer for an hour or two. Strain off the liquid. Add to it 1 teaspoon of sugar, season with salt, and add 1 cup of warm milk. Water gruel. If water gruel is desired, let the last cup of liquid added be water instead of milk. Cream gruel. A cream gruel may be made by using rich cream instead of milk or water. Barley gruel. Barley gruel, usually a water gruel, is prepared as follows. Moisten 4 tablespoons of barley flour in a little cold water, and add it slowly to the boiling water. Stir and boil for 20 minutes. Toasts. Cream toast. Toast the bread slowly until brown on both sides. Butter and pour over each slice enough warm cream to moisten. The cream may be thickened slightly and the butter may be omitted. Milk toast. 1 tablespoon of cornstarch or flour, 1 cup of milk, salt to taste, and boil. Butter the toast and pour over it the above white sauce. Water toast. Pour over plain or buttered toast enough boiling water to thoroughly moisten it. Soufflés of fruit, etc. The distinguished feature of a soufflé is a pastry or pulpy foundation mixture and the addition of stiffly beaten egg white. A soufflé may or may not be baked. Plain soufflé. 2 tablespoons flour, 1 cup of liquid, water, milk, or fruit juice, 3 or 4 eggs, sugar to suit the fruit. If thick fruit pulp is used, omit the thickening. Beat the egg yolks until thick. Add sugar gradually and continue beating. Add the fruit. If lemon juice, add some rind also. Fold in the well-beaten whites. Bake in a buttered dish set in a pan of hot water for 35 or 40 minutes in a slow oven. Fresh fruit soufflé. Reduce the fruit to a pulp. Strawberries, peaches, prunes, apples, bananas, etc. may be used. Sweeten the pulp. Beat the egg white to a stiff froth. Add the fruit pulp slowly, chill, and serve with whipped cream or soft custard. Chocolate soufflé. 2 tablespoons flour, 2 tablespoons butter, 3/4 cup of milk, 1/3 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons hot water. Melt the butter, add the flour, and stir well. Pour the milk in gradually and cook until well boiled. Add the melted chocolate to which the sugar and hot water have been added. Beat in the yolks and fold in the whites of the eggs. Bake 25 minutes. Farina soufflé. Cook the farina, 4 tablespoons, in a pint of boiling water. Stir this with the egg yolks, add sugar or salt, and later fold in the egg whites, flavor, and set away to cool. End of section 14. Section 15 of What to Eat and When. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by BettyB. What to Eat and When by Susanna Cocroft. Infant feeding. One of the fundamental problems of today, as it was of yesterday and will be of tomorrow, is the correct feeding of infants and children. Every civilized country faces the same problem, largely because the artificial feeding of infants has become so prevalent. Unfortunately, many women who must labor outside of the home must resort partially, if not entirely, to artificial feeding of their infants. Usually on account of the inconvenience of breastfeeding and the strain on the mother, the infant is given artificial food, often improperly prepared. Although infant mortality is high among the poorer classes, it is marvelous that so many of these infants survive. It is an encouraging fact, however, that women among the well-to-do and educated classes are appreciating the importance of breastfeeding, and that the number of these who are not only willing but anxious to nurse their infants is increasing. The mother should be firm in her decision to nurse her child and be encouraged to persevere in efforts to secure the proper development of the breasts before the birth of the child, that the quantity as well as the quality of the milk may be adequate. The fact that nearly 1/4 of the civilized race dies during the first year of life is astounding. This mortality is due directly or indirectly to nutritional disturbances that could in a great measure be prevented if the babies were properly nursed at the breast or if the artificial feeding was carefully regulated. Of 641 infants under observation in Dublin, in Fall River, Massachusetts, 565 were breastfed and 76 bottle-fed. After the first week, there were 106 deaths. In 74 of these, the infants were breastfed, and in 32, bottle-fed. Nearly 1/2 of the bottle-fed babies died, and only 10% of the breastfed babies. The breastfed child, therefore, has 5 chances to live, where the bottle-fed child has 1. One fundamental principle on which all of the leading specialists in the study of the baby agree is that the milk of the healthy mother is the only ideal baby food. Every mother should be made to realize the importance of nursing her baby for at least 9 or 10 months, unless circumstances beyond control make it impossible or inadvisable. Proper care of the breasts and of the general health during the expectant period will usually secure a sufficient flow of milk for the child's needs. The mental attitude of the mother has much to do with the secretion of milk. Therefore, she should cultivate the habit of kindly, cheerful, healthful thoughts. She should keep her circulation and vitality up to par. She should take regular exercise and be out in the fresh air daily. During the first 2 or 3 days, the child receives little nourishment from the breast, simply a few ounces daily of a yellowish substance known as colostrum, which is supposed to have a laxative effect on the bowels. It is, however, usual to put the child to the breast at regular intervals of about 4 hours after the first day, to stimulate the milk secretion, which should be quite free on the 3rd day. It, however, may be slow in coming for a day or 2 longer. A teaspoonful or 2 of warm boiled water, or of a 5% solution of milk sugar, may be given every few hours. In fact, it is considered advisable by some physicians, in order to lessen somewhat the loss in weight which takes place during the first week. If the free flow of milk is delayed beyond 48 hours, some nourishment must be given. A little modified cow's milk is best. The preparation of this will be taken up under artificial feeding. The mother should not permit herself to become easily discouraged about her ability to nurse her child, for even though the supply at first seems very deficient and it is necessary to give the baby other nourishment, it should be put to the breast at regular intervals, as the sucking by the child stimulates the secretion of milk. The flow of milk often increases when the mother becomes more active. When the milk flows freely, the contents of one breast is sufficient for one nursing, and the breasts should be used alternately, that is, one breast at one feeding and the other at the next. Nursing should not last longer than from 10 to 20 minutes. Too rapid nursing is apt to cause vomiting. If it is necessary to check the flow of milk somewhat, it can be done by pressing the breast slightly between the fingers. There is a warmth, a purity, and a vitality to the mother's milk that is impossible to secure in any artificial food, no matter how carefully and skillfully prepared. It is also germ-free. Some women seem unable to nurse their babies for more than 2 or 3 months, and it is sometimes thought that it is not worth while for a woman to nurse her baby unless she can do so for a considerable time. This, however, is a great mistake, because there is no time in the baby's life when it is more important for it to have breast milk than in the beginning. This is the time when the baby's digestion is most easily disturbed and most difficult to correct. Every day or week that a baby gets breast milk gives it a better start. It has been thought that it is dangerous to use both breast and artificial feeding. This idea is erroneous. The artificial food cannot make the breast milk hard to digest, while the breastfeeding seems to make the artificial food digest more readily. This may be due in part to the ferments which the breast milk contains, but more probably is due to the fact that the baby is able to utilize the proteins of human milk to build tissue when it cannot so readily utilize the proteins of the artificial food. Wet nursing is resorted to less frequently now than in the past on account of better methods for artificial feeding. If the mother is unable to nurse the child herself, and the conditions are ideal, that is the wet nurse a happy, healthy woman with a thriving baby of her own, and very particular in the care of her person, this is better than artificial feeding. Total absence of milk after earnest efforts to stimulate its secretion necessitates artificial feeding. If the mother has chorea, epilepsy, or tuberculosis in any form, it is best to resort to artificial feeding. Also, if the mother has syphilis and the baby is free from it. In these conditions, the child must often be taken from the mother to avoid infection. If the mother has had serious complications in pregnancy or parturition, the physician must decide on the advisability of natural or artificial feeding. In case of nephritis, except perhaps in a very mild form, the milk is toxic, and therefore nursing from the breast should be prohibited. Sometimes in acute contagious disease, it is safer to nurse the baby than to subject it to the dangers of artificial food. However, when the mother's temperature exceeds 101 or 102 degrees, the milk will probably possess toxic qualities and disagree with the infant. Every nursing mother should acquaint herself with the process of the infant's digestion, as many of the infantile difficulties are caused by overfeeding or underfeeding, due to ignorance on this subject. The alimentary tract of the newborn infant differs in many ways from that of the adult. As compared with other mammals, the human infant is the most helpless and undeveloped, and therefore the most delicate and easily affected. It is practically dependent on its mother for nourishment, which will completely supply its needs. The capacity of the stomach, after careful study, has been placed at from 1 to 2 ounces at birth, 2 to 3 ounces at the end of the first month, 6 ounces at the 6th month, and from 9 to 10 ounces at the end of the first year. This is simply an average guide, as stomachs vary somewhat in size. Quantities somewhat larger than the foregoing are sometimes fed, but some of the food has passed beyond the pylorus before the last of it is taken. Digestion begins as soon as the food enters the stomach. The secretion of bile begins within 12 hours after birth, increases rapidly, and is fully established within a week or 10 days. The pancreatic ferments which digest starches and sugar are present in the newborn. Although scanty, the sucking movements of the child when nursing exercise the salivary glands so that saliva is secreted, but starch digestion is not completed in the mouth, hence starch and a greater proportion of sugar than is in the mother's milk are difficult for the infant to digest. The intestines, when compared with the length of the body, are relatively long in infants, but the muscular coat is comparatively weak. Digestion is therefore relatively slow and more subject to derangement by substances that influence peristalsis. The fact that infants vomit with comparatively little effort, the food overflowing from an overloaded stomach, is due to the relatively feeble closure of the cardiac orifice. The stomach contents are kept germ-free by the secretion of hydrochloric acid, and the upper intestine is nearly free from bacteria in breastfed infants, because of the antibacterial nature of the intestinal secretion. In some digestive disturbances, this safeguard fails and bacteria develop rapidly. Intestinal disturbance in the breastfed infant is most often caused by overfeeding, the infant often nursing too frequently, thereby emptying the breasts and securing a high fat ratio. Frequent nursing does not give the stomach time to empty, and thus digestive disturbances are apt to occur. Therefore, as a means of relieving intestinal trouble in the infant, nursing at regular intervals and not too frequently is of much importance. When digestive disturbance has occurred, it is best to stop nursing for 24 hours, giving the infant weak barley gruel sweetened with saccharin. At the end of 24 hours, let the infant nurse at the breast for from 3 to 5 minutes, this being preceded by a small drink of water. As the bowel condition improves, the time at the breast may be gradually lengthened. The mother should watch her diet to avoid too much rich food and foods that seem difficult to digest, as certain articles of food in the mother's diet often causes gastric disturbances in the infant. She should also carefully watch her thoughts, keeping them well poised and upon kindness, love, and peace. Worry or unkind thoughts will affect the mother's milk and disturb the child's digestion very quickly. Fits of temper in the child also disturb its digestion. Regular nursing habits should be insisted on, as indigestion, colic, and diarrhea often result from irregular nursing. Some authorities discourage night feeding as unnecessary with a normal baby, but most physicians agree that the child should be aroused during the day in order not to miss a feeding, as it will fall asleep again directly after nursing and will soon get into the habit of awakening at feeding time. The following table from Holt may be used as a guide in breastfeeding. Age, first day. Number in 24 hours, 4. Intervals during the day hours, 6. Night nursing between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., 1. Second day. Number in 24 hours, 6. Intervals during the day hours, 4. Night nursing between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., 1. Third to 28th day. Number in 24 hours, 10. Intervals during the day hours, 2. Night nursing between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., 2. Fourth to 13th week. Number in 24 hours, 8. Intervals during the day hours, 2 1/2. Night nursing between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., 1. Third to 5th month. Number in 24 hours, 7. Intervals during the day hours, 3. Night nursing between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., 1. 5th to 12th month. Number in 24 hours, 6. Intervals during the day hours, 3. Night nursing between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., 0. There may be some slight deviations from this if the child is ill and small for its age. It is a good general rule to feed the child according to the age with which its weight corresponds. There can be no regular rule followed for all. Some authorities hold that 15 to 20-minute feedings at 4-hour intervals during the day with one feeding at night are sufficient, but it depends on the child. Some babies' stomachs are smaller than others, and some do not nurse regularly, but play and are inattentive to the nursing. In either event, the child will not get sufficient nourishment at 4-hour intervals. The intelligent mother can determine what is best. In breastfeeding, as well as in most of the formula for bottle feeding, there is an allowance for an amount of fluid under ordinary circumstances satisfies the baby's requirements. Additional water is often necessary, especially during the hot weather, when the body heat is regulated through evaporation from the skin. The most effective means of promoting perspiration is the giving of water. This, however, should not be done to excess. 8 ounces for a 10-pound baby given in divided doses during the day will be sufficient. It is best to give the water when the stomach is nearly or quite empty. It should be boiled and cooled and should be given by the bottle, as the child will then take at intervals all that its thirst requires, and the danger of choking as a result of too hasty swallowing is avoided. The growth and general condition of the child will, of course, be influenced by the quality and quantity of the milk. The birth weight of 7 to 7 1/2 pounds is usually doubled by the end of the 5th month and trebled by the end of the year. The average gain is from 5 to 8 ounces a week during the first few months and from 2 to 4 ounces a week the last few months of the year. If the mother's milk is deficient in any way, the child becomes fretful and loses weight, or the weight remains stationary. In such cases, the physician usually examines the milk to determine its quality and advises some means of improving it, or in some way adding to the baby's food the element in which the mother's milk is lacking. The physical condition of the mother often affects the baby's nourishment, and besides resorting temporarily to means for improving the quality of the milk, she should build up her general vitality through regular exercise for the spine and the vital organs, deep breathing of fresh air, and regular rest. While a scanty food supply will diminish the flow of milk, overloading the stomach at mealtime and taking quantities of rich food between meals, as so many nursing mothers think is necessary, usually does little to increase the quantity or improve the quality of the milk, but often results in an accumulation of superfluous flesh and disturbed digestion, which quickly affects the child. Sometimes a more restricted diet together with specially directed exercises to relieve any digestive disturbance and correct constipation and relaxing exercises for the nerves will do more than anything else to improve the quality of the milk. Mothers should particularly avoid becoming overtired. When the milk is good, but the quantity deficient, massage of the breast 3 or 4 times a day for 5 or 10 minutes will increase the supply. One effective means of increasing the secretion of the mammary glands is the mechanical stimulus of suction. If a robust baby can be put to the breast for a time, it may develop an ample flow of milk for a puny infant whose powers of suction are feeble. A good malt extract with meals sometimes tends to increase the flow of milk. When the quality and quantity of the milk are deficient, the physician usually advises a very nourishing diet and a tonic. This nourishment does not of necessity require an excessive amount of liquid. When the quantity is sufficient but the quality poor, it is usually necessary to wean the baby, if it is several months old, although mother's milk, even if below standard in quality, is better for the infant than cow's milk, at least during the first few months. Nervousness, sleeplessness, worry, and grief have a decided effect on the milk supply and on the baby. Nervous mothers are apt to have an abundance of milk one day and little the next. Frequently, the milk will disappear suddenly. When it is possible, the baby should be weaned gradually. Although there is no set time for weaning, it is not advisable to feed the child exclusively from the breast after the 8th or 10th month. Bunge holds that human milk contains too little iron at this period, and the babies are apt to become pale and undernourished. When additional feeding is decided on, the physician should prescribe the preparation. A bottle a day should be substituted for the breast feeding at first, and gradually additional bottle feedings until, after about a month, the breast is entirely withdrawn. After the 8th month and until the age of 12 months, as a general rule, cow's milk should be diluted and sweetened by mixing 8 ounces of barley water and 32 ounces of milk, adding an ounce of cane sugar or milk sugar, and dividing the whole into 5 8-ounce portions. Additional food may be given to the healthy child after the 8th or 9th month. Orange juice or other fruit juice once or twice a day should be given about an hour before feeding. A teaspoonful may be given at first, and the amount gradually increased to about 2 tablespoonfuls a day. Orange juice is a specific in conditions of scurvy resulting from improper feeding. The child usually improves rapidly after it begins to take the juice. Beef juice, meat broths, or strained vegetable soup may be given in increasing amounts up to 5 or 6 ounces daily. Zwieback and whole wheat or graham crackers are permissible in small amounts after the 9th month. After 9 months, the healthy baby should also have a soft boiled egg occasionally, also baked apple and well cooked mashed spinach or carrots. Food should be given only at regular intervals and nothing but water between feedings. Starch digesting ferments are present at birth in sufficient amounts to digest the sugar and milk, but they do not develop sufficiently to digest starches until after the 12th month. So white bread, crackers made from white flour, potatoes, rice, etc., should not be given the child under a year. When artificial feeding is necessary, the physician must decide what modification is best for the baby. One can only determine by experimenting upon the actual percentages of fat, proteins, and sugar which each baby needs, following in general the proportions contained in mother's milk, because while many babies thrive on a food of this composition, Some do not. The formulae given are simply a guide, as the proportions may need to be changed, or may need to be made weaker in some cases and stronger in others. The composition of human milk, however, is a guide to the infant's digestive ability. This must be determined by a careful formula of the individual baby, as every baby is a problem by itself. As previously mentioned, no artificial food is the same as human milk, although it may contain the same proportions of the different elements, and it is often difficult, especially during the first few months, to prepare a combination on which the child will thrive. Cow's milk, properly prepared, is the nearest available substitute for human milk. It must be modified, as the digestion of the calf at birth is equal to that of an infant at 8 or 9 months. Farmers have in recent years become more particular about the care of their cows and cleanliness in milking, because the educational campaign with regard to the danger to human life from tuberculosis animals has caused a greater public demand for good, clean milk. Many infectious diseases are conveyed by milk, and impure milk is a large cause of the extraordinarily high mortality of early infancy. With the improvement of the milk supply, the decline in the infant death rate has been wondrously gratifying. Manufacturers have taken advantage of the fact that the public has become a little afraid of cow's milk, and have extensively advertised their prepared foods, claiming them to be the best substitute for mother's milk. However, experiments have proven that these statements for the most part are misleading, the composition of the foods not being suited to the actual requirements of the infant. Some prominent physicians think that infant mortality has been increasing since prepared foods have been used so extensively. One leading authority states that clean, fresh cow's milk, properly modified, is the best substitute available. It is to be preferred to any prepared food, no matter how sweeping may be the manufacturer's claim for it. The most striking thing about the prepared foods is their tremendous excess of carbohydrates, either cane sugar or sugar derived from starch by the process of malting. Condensed milk, in particular, contains much too large a percentage of cane sugar for the child. Another authority states, an excess of sugar is likely to damage the organism by the production of poisonous substances in the body. This is particularly true in those infants who are already suffering from indigestion. An excess of sugar in such a baby is likely to render him severely and dangerously sick and result in catastrophe. The study of the bacteriology of the alimentary tract of the newborn infant reveals a most interesting fact, and explains why artificial feeding is often so difficult and dangerous. In the intestinal canal at all times, many varieties of vegetable organisms, bacteria, are present. These are called floral organisms. Some of these aid digestion, while some others increase disturbance in the intestines, particularly if in excess, or if digestive derangements occur. The flora which predominate are those peculiar to the infant which is properly digesting human milk. This accounts for the uniform action of the bowels in breastfed infants. As soon as the child gets milk from the breast, the intestinal flora assume this definite form. When cow's milk or any other food is given, the intestinal flora change. When the change is made too suddenly, these new flora, which live on the digested products of human milk, gradually disappear, and the action of the new flora often causes intestinal derangements which the infant is not strong enough to overcome. If artificial feeding must be resorted to, the composition should resemble mother's milk as nearly as possible. It is impossible to duplicate it exactly, and even though the elements and the proportion of them are the same, the bacterial flora will be different, and consequently the effect also. If the breasts are emptied regularly, human milk varies little in composition after the first few weeks. According to Holt, there is an average in mother's milk of fat 4%, sugar 7%, protein 1.5%, salt 0.2%, water 87.3%. When the baby has been fed at the breast for several months, pure cow's milk sometimes agrees very well, if overfeeding is avoided. The amount of milk taken every 24 hours by a healthy infant is usually about 1¼ ounces to the pound of the baby's weight. A normal infant of 12 pounds would be taking between 12 and 18 ounces of milk in its 24-hour mixture. Boudin recommends 1/10 of the body weight daily of milk and reports excellent results in infants after the 5th or 6th month, weighing from 13 to 15 pounds. Most infants under the age of 9 months are more or less incapable of digesting cow's milk undiluted. If artificial food is resorted to from the start, practically all physicians agree that the milk should be diluted or otherwise modified during the first few months at least. Milk diluted with water is often given, 1 part of milk to 2 parts of water. This reduces the protein to about the amount found in breast milk. It is necessary to keep up the proportion of protein, as this alone contains the important food element, nitrogen. From 1/2 to 3/4 of an ounce of milk sugar is added to the 24-hour supply of food to approximate the 7% found in breast milk. The proportion of milk and milk sugar is gradually increased and the water decreased, so that at the end of the 1st or 2nd month the baby gets equal parts of milk and water and about an ounce more of milk sugar. This process is continued until near the end of the 1st year the child is on whole milk. The sugar is lessened as the water is omitted. If, after a few months, it is desired to give a baby starch in its food, cereal waters made of barley, rice, wheat, or oatmeal may be used in place of plain water. As cow's milk leaves the stomach more slowly than mother's milk, longer intervals between feedings seem advisable. When the breastfed infant receives nourishment every 2½ to 3 hours, an infant given a cow's milk preparation would be fed every 3½ or 4 hours. The most important thing is to prevent both overfeeding and underfeeding, as these are often the greatest factors in producing infantile disturbances. A too rapid gain in weight, from 8 to 12 ounces a week, which often occurs in artificially fed infants, is not a good sign. Milk prepared according to the formula desired by the physician can now be secured from milk laboratories in all of our larger cities. However, the milk is apt to spoil in transit, and to secure its freshness when one is not in or near a large city, it is best to prepare it at home. Any intelligent mother or nurse can do this very satisfactorily if the physician gives definite instructions. Its careful preparation is quite as important as the correct formula. Mineral, calcium, and protein are bone and other tissue builders, and it is a significant fact that cow's milk contains about twice as much protein and a little more than twice as much of the mineral as mother's milk, indicating that the growth of the human infant is to be slow. The calf requires about 4 years for full growth and the human being 21 years. Both human and cow's milk, however, contain an equal amount of fat, the heat-producing element, as nature intended that the infant should be warm and active. It seems almost impossible to get milk from the cow as clean and free from bacteria as it should be, and therefore sterilization and pasteurization are resorted to almost universally. Various substances such as formaldehyde, boric acid, and salicylic acid are used by dealers to preserve the milk. These all have a deleterious effect on the child. Therefore, the safety of the child demands that the mother choose a reliable dairy. The milk may be analyzed occasionally to make sure of its purity. A very popular milk preparation, and one frequently prescribed by physicians, is the top milk method as originated by Dr. Holt. Top milk is that at the top of milk bottles in which milk has been allowed to stand for 5 or 6 hours. The cream at the top contains the most fat. For instance, in a quart of milk that has been permitted to stand, the upper 4 ounces contain 20% of fat, upper 6 ounces contain 16% of fat, upper 8 ounces contain 12% of fat, upper 10 ounces contain 11% of fat, upper 12 ounces contain 9% of fat, upper 14 ounces contain 8% of fat, upper 16 ounces contain 7% of fat, upper 20 ounces contain 6% of fat, and upper 24 ounces contain 5% of fat. To remove the top milk, the first ounce is taken out with a spoon and the remainder with a Chapin milk dipper which contains 1 ounce. The following formula is considered a good top milk mixture, although it is not supposed to meet the needs of all infants and would therefore have to be modified in some cases and made stronger in others. Top milk mixture. Top milk, upper 8 ounces, 2½ ounces. Bottom milk, 1 ounce. Lime water, 1/2 ounce. Milk sugar, 1 measure, 1/2 ounce. Water sufficient to make 8 ounces. The sugar is dissolved by boiling it in the quantity of water to be used for the mixture. If not perfectly clear, it is strained through cheesecloth. The one thing to be particularly guarded against is overloading the stomach with rich food. On account of the high percentage of fat, digestive disturbances often occur when top milk is used. Some infants can dispose of an abundance of fat from the beginning, and most of them can after 6 or 9 months, but many infants have difficulty in digesting fat. The condition called fat rickets may exist, though the child may seem to thrive and increase in weight. Its flesh, however, is not hard and firm as it should be in health. The cream from Guernsey and Jersey cows is usually too rich for infants, and therefore the best milk for the baby is that from Holstein or grade cows. The mixed milk from various cows is usually best. The physician can determine from the stools if the fat ratio is too high, in which case it is best to use top milk lower in percentage of fat and lengthen the feeding intervals to 4 hours. If the additional expense of certified milk can be met, it is advisable to use it in preparing the baby's food, as it is reasonably constant in its composition and is prepared under the most hygienic conditions in accordance with the requirements of the American Association of Medical Milk Commissions. All utensils used in preparing the baby's milk must be absolutely clean. Bacteria develops very quickly in milk, and therefore the bottles, nipples, etc., should be kept as germ-free as possible by being boiled daily, and the nipples, when not in use, should be kept in a solution of boracic acid, 1/4 ounce boracic acid to 1/2 pint of water. The artificially fed baby does not usually thrive as well as the breastfed infant. It does not gain in weight as fast, and the teeth are slower in coming. The general condition of the baby, and a steady, even if slow gain in weight, will indicate whether the food is agreeing. Every baby, however, is a law unto itself, and it sometimes requires considerable study to determine what is the best food. Even with the utmost care, a cow's milk preparation cannot be made identical with mother's milk, and sometimes an entirely different mixture must be resorted to. However, no mother should attempt to experiment on her baby or permit herself to be misled by the advertisements of so-called baby foods. It is only when these are used in the right proportion and in combination with other ingredients that they can be suited to the requirements of the infant. Malt used in place of milk sugar or cane sugar will greatly assist the absorption of fat and decrease the tendency to fermentation and colic. It is being extensively used in milk modifications. It is best to use the dextrin maltose preparations that do not contain sodium chloride, as it is rarely advisable to add this salt to the infant's food. Some physicians have been securing very satisfactory results with a preparation containing whey. Whey is a thin, watery fluid looking very much like skimmed milk. Its caloric value is about 300 per quart, 9 per ounce, barely 1/2 that of whole milk. It is therefore adapted only to temporary feeding, while its low fat content is of great value in cases of fat dyspepsia. To secure the whey, 5 grams, 1 teaspoonful of rennet should be used to each quart of milk. The mixture must be kept at a temperature of about 100 degrees Fahrenheit until it separates into a liquid and a solid portion. It is then strained through cheesecloth. Practically all the casein is left on the cloth, the fluid being the whey. The curd should be broken up before straining, in order to obtain, as nearly as possible, the casein. However, about 2/3 of the milk fats remain in the curd. The whey, besides the whey proteins, thus contains only about 1/3 of the fats, but nearly all of the milk sugar and salts. The whey still contains the rennet, and to destroy this the whey must be heated to at least 140 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. The average composition of whey, according to Wachenheim, is as follows: proteins 0.8%, fats 1%, milk sugar 4.5%, salts 0.7%, water 93%. Sometimes sugar is the primary cause of intestinal fermentation due to the concentration of the whey and the relative proportions of casein and sugar in the mixture. According to Finkelstein and Meyer, to prepare a food which will combat intestinal fermentation, there must be a diminution in the quantity of milk sugar, a diminution of the salts through dilution of the whey, and an increase in the casein, with varying and under certain circumstances not inconsiderable amounts of fat. After improvement has begun, an easily assimilable and consequently little fermentable carbohydrate should be added. They developed a food to meet these requirements, to which they gave the name of Eiweißmilch. This food is prepared as follows: heat 1 quart of whole milk to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Add 4 teaspoonfuls of essence of pepsin and stir. Let the mixture stand at 100 degrees Fahrenheit until the curd has formed, then strain. Press the mass of curd through a rather fine sieve 2 or 3 times by the means of a wooden mallet or spoon. Add 1 pint of water to the curd during this process. The mixture should now look like milk, and the precipitate must be very finely divided. Add 1 pint of buttermilk to this mixture. Finkelstein and Meyer used buttermilk in the preparation of this food: 1. Because of the small amount of milk sugar which it contains; 2. To obtain the good effects of the lactic acid; 3. Because buttermilk can be kept for a longer time. The composition of this food is: fat 2.5%, sugar 1.5%, protein 3%, salts 0.5%. 1 quart of this milk contains about 360 calories. They call attention to the low caloric value of this food and to the necessity of increasing it as soon as possible by the addition of dextrin-maltose mixtures. They claim that it is worthy of employment in all the disturbances of nutrition in infants, which are accompanied by diarrhea of no matter what kind. The use of this food has been extended by others to all sorts of conditions, including the feeding of healthy infants and the newly born, and good results are claimed for it. To use a food low in sugar and salts and high in protein in the fermentative conditions caused by sugar is rational. In these conditions, the substitution of the dextrin-maltose mixtures for lactose is also good. Not all disturbances of nutrition accompanied by diarrhea, however, are due to the same cause, and should not be treated in the same way. No method of feeding can be applicable to both the sick and the well, nor can all babies be given the same food without regard to their individual digestive ability. The main principles of this method of treating intestinal fermentative conditions may be used, and at the same time the disadvantages of a routine food may be avoided by applying the modification of milk by the percentage method as given by Moyes and Talbot. To sterilize the milk it should be heated to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, that temperature being maintained for 10 minutes or longer. Many physicians consider pasteurization the better process. In this the milk is heated to from 150 to 165 degrees Fahrenheit and kept at that temperature for from 20 to 30 minutes. Boiling produces chemical changes such as converting the milk sugar into caramel, etc., while pasteurizing does not. After pasteurization or sterilization, the milk should be quickly cooled to a temperature of 40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, and kept until used in bottles corked with non-absorbent cotton. Sterilized or pasteurized milk does not keep as well as raw milk, probably on account of the change in the ferments which destroy bacteria. Therefore, the baby's milk should be pasteurized fresh every day. Freeman's pasteurizer is a very satisfactory and simple device. It consists of a metal pail into which is fitted a rack with a separate cylinder for each bottle. This holds just enough cold water to surround the bottle and keep it from cracking through a sudden change of temperature. The pail, containing a certain amount of water, is placed on the stove, the water is heated to the boiling point, the pail being then removed. The rack of bottles containing the milk preparation with corks of non-absorbent cotton is placed in it and the lid applied. The apparatus is placed away from a direct current of air for about 45 minutes. As the water in the pail cools, the milk in the bottles grows warm until both are at the same temperature. After 45 minutes, cold water is turned into the pail to cool the bottles rapidly. They are then kept on ice until again warmed, ready for use. This is the simplest and best way to pasteurize milk, and the expense is small. Improvised apparatus may be used, but it requires much more labor and is not as satisfactory. All milk should be sterilized or pasteurized before being used as a food for infant. The following table shows an analysis of milks and infant foods helpful in the selection of a food to supply deficiencies indicated by a chemical analysis of the infant. Comparative analysis of milks and infant foods compiled. Percentage of composition of the dry substance. Components. Protein. Mother's milk 14, cow's milk 27, Borden's malted milk 15.10, Horlick's malted milk 13.83, Borden's condensed milk Eagle brand 10.10, Nestle's Food milk substitute 12.40, Mellon's Food milk modifier 12.10, SK's Food milk modifier 6.82. Fat. Mother's milk 31, cow's milk 31, Borden's malted milk 9.20, Horlick's malted milk 7.90, Borden's condensed milk Eagle brand 12.10, Nestle's Food milk substitute 4.15, Mellon's Food milk modifier 0.25, SK's Food milk modifier 3.58. Cane sugar. Mother's milk none, cow's milk none, Borden's malted milk none, Horlick's malted milk none, Borden's condensed milk Eagle brand 59.1, Nestle's Food milk substitute 22.10, Mellon's Food milk modifier none, SK's Food milk modifier none. Other soluble carbohydrates, lactose, maltose, etc. Mother's milk 52, cow's milk 36, Borden's malted milk 69.77, Horlick's malted milk 66.56, Borden's condensed milk Eagle brand 16, Nestle's Food milk substitute 35, Mellon's Food milk modifier 84, SK's Food milk modifier 56.78. Starch. Mother's milk none, cow's milk none, Borden's malted milk none, Horlick's malted milk none, Borden's condensed milk Eagle brand none, Nestle's Food milk substitute 25.70, Mellon's Food milk modifier none, SK's Food milk modifier 30.42. Ash. Mineral content. Mother's milk 2, cow's milk 5, Borden's malted milk 3.46, Horlick's malted milk 3.42, Borden's condensed milk Eagle brand 2.4, Nestle's Food milk substitute 1.62, Mellon's Food milk modifier 3.78, SK's Food milk modifier 1. The following table from Holt shows at a glance the comparative average composition of human and cow's milk. Human and cow's milk compared. Fat, human milk 4%, cow's milk 4%. Sugar, human milk 7%, cow's milk 4.5%. Proteins, human milk 1.5%, cow's milk 3.5%. Salts, human milk 0.2%, cow's milk 0.75%. Water, human milk 87.30%, cow's milk 87.25%. Total, human milk 100%, cow's milk 100%. Barley, rice, oatmeal, cornmeal, and soybean flour are generally used. If the grains of the cereals are used, they must be cooked from 3 to 4 hours. As a rule, cereal gruels are made by cooking the flour for from 15 to 20 minutes. 2 ounces to the quart is about as strong as plain gruels can be made. Dextrinized gruels may be made as high as 8 ounces to the quart. 4 level tablespoons of the cereal flour weigh 1 ounce. As the soybean contains no starch, it does not thicken when cooking. About 1 level tablespoonful to 3 ounces of soybean flour are used to the quart. 1 or 2 tablespoonfuls of barley, oat, or wheat gruel may be added before cooking to increase the nutritive value. 1 ounce of soybean flour or 2 ounces of barley flour to 1 quart of water makes a very good standard gruel. It contains 2% protein, 0.6% fat, 5.1% carbohydrates, giving a food value of 10 calories per ounce, just 1/2 the value of milk. In certain forms of intestinal trouble in which cow's milk is not assimilated, this gruel is valuable used with condensed milk. Malted gruels are made by adding 1 teaspoonful of good malt extract or diastase to a cereal gruel after it has been cooled. It should be stirred in very thoroughly. In artificial feeding, spitting is usually an annoying symptom that does not indicate anything more serious than an overloaded stomach. This condition is usually relieved by lengthening the feeding intervals to 4 hours. On the other hand, vomiting usually indicates something more serious in a bottle-fed baby, especially if it is very persistent. It is usually a sign that cow's milk, or the preparation of it, is not agreeing with the infant. It also indicates a digestive disturbance that should be treated only by the physician, who will probably change the formula. Occasional vomiting is sometimes due to too rich food and too frequent feeding. Lengthening the feeding hours and decreasing the amount of fat in the mixture will usually eliminate the trouble. This is the most common of all a baby's troubles. It is often due to too rapid feeding either from the breast or bottle, and when there is a tendency to colic, the feeding should be slower. The baby should not be fed while it is suffering from colic, even though it seems that the drinking of warm milk relieves it temporarily. Hot water should be given every half hour or hour until relieved. If the baby seems cold, hot water slightly sweetened and a hot bath should be given at once. A hot water bottle may be placed near it as well. In colic there is severe pain in the abdomen, which is swollen and hard. Sudden and violent crying is usually a symptom of colic, which often ceases very suddenly after the emission of gas from the mouth or bowels. If the baby seems exhausted, the physician should be summoned at once, but these suggestions may be helpful until the physician arrives. When colic is very frequent in a bottle-fed baby, the food should be modified. The character of the stools depends primarily on the composition of the food. They are varied according to the digestive powers of the infant and according to the amount and rapidity of absorption of the products of digestion. The amount of absorption depends to a considerable extent on the rapidity with which the contents pass through the intestinal tract. The nature of the food, of course, influences the character of the stools. The examination of the stools is of the greatest aid in determining whether or not any given food element is properly digested and assimilated, and in many diseased conditions in telling what element is at fault. This, however, can only be determined by analysis, but a little information on this subject will be of value to the mother or nurse. During the first few weeks or months of life, the breastfed infant has 3 or 4 stools daily. These are of about the consistency of thick pea soup and are golden yellow. The number of stools gradually diminishes to 2 or 3 in the 24 hours, and the consistency becomes more salve-like. It is not uncommon for thriving breastfed babies to have a large number of stools of diminished consistency and of a brownish color. In such instances, the examination of the breast milk will show that the proteins are high. It is best not to pay too much attention to the stools if the baby is gaining in weight and appears well. It is not unusual to find many soft, fine curds and sometimes mucus in the stools of healthy breastfed babies. It is not only unnecessary, but decidedly wrong to wean a baby simply because the stools are abnormal, if it is doing well in other ways. The breastfed infant will often go weeks or months without a normal stool, and yet thrive perfectly. On the other hand, if a baby has such stools when it is taking cow's milk, it is a decided evidence of malnutrition. Infants that are thriving on cow's milk have, as a general rule, fewer movements in the 24 hours than do breastfed babies, and these movements are firmer in consistency. Constipation seems to be the chief difficulty in artificial feeding, due usually to the poor absorption of fat or the low percentage necessary to prevent indigestion. If the constipation is not severe, the substitution of oatmeal for barley water in the mixture will usually relieve the trouble. If the constipation is severe, causing occasional attacks of colic or straining at stool, it is sometimes advisable to give a little higher percentage of fat in the mixture, but this should be done very cautiously and usually on the advice of the physician. If, however, this does not relieve the trouble, the best plan is to substitute one of the dextrin maltose mixtures for milk sugar or cane sugar. The malt itself is not especially laxative, but it prevents the excessive fermentation which usually occurs when the bowels are very costive. 2, 3, or more green and loose evacuations, even though they may contain whitish particles of undigested fat, are of no great significance in the breastfed infant, but should be regarded as danger signals in bottle-fed babies. Even a mild attack of diarrhea is usually a symptom of fat dyspepsia, which, if taken in time, may usually be promptly checked. A dose of castor oil at the beginning of the attack may relieve an irritation that might have caused the trouble. It is best to omit all food for at least 24 hours. Plain water should be given very freely, and occasionally barley water if the baby is hungry. After that, it is best to start with a mixture low in fat. Skimmed milk or boiled milk free from all fat, diluted with cereal water, may be given at regular intervals. Should slight diarrheal attacks continue, or should the stools be of a diarrheal character, the wisest plan is to substitute a dextrin maltose mixture for the sugar, as malt decidedly favors fat absorption. In almost every case of infantile diarrhea, it is advisable to consult the physician, especially if there is considerable restlessness and rise in temperature. Diarrhea is more frequent in summer among bottle-fed babies, as the heat often promotes the growth of germs in the milk. Therefore, to sterilize or pasteurize milk during the heated months is especially necessary. A chill, due to insufficient clothing, will sometimes cause diarrhea. The abdomen, arms, and legs should be kept warm by close-fitting garments of soft wool. In treating anemia in infants, as in adults, the cause should be removed by correcting any errors in diet and treating any other physical deficiencies. The cause of infantile anemia is an insufficient absorption of iron from the food. The amount of iron in both human milk and cow's milk is small and is insufficient for the needs of the growing infant. However, nature has deposited enough iron in the liver of the newborn infant to last until it can digest foods which contain iron in sufficient amounts. The iron in human milk is apparently more easily retained than that in the milk of animals. The iron content of human milk is dependent on the general condition of the mother. It is higher in healthy individuals and lower in those under par. Anemia in infants is apt to become severe and often take on a pernicious form. A prolonged intestinal disturbance often brings on anemia, and not infrequently anemia is due to a deficiency of protein in the food. The treatment consists largely of additions or changes in the diet, depending on the age of the infant. Purees of vegetables that contain much iron, such as spinach and carrots, and also fruit juices, are valuable, and in proper proportions can be added to the diet after the age of 6 months. It is best that the physician decide on the advisability of this, as it will depend on the general condition of the infant. Rickets, a chronic impairment of nutrition, affects not only the bones, but all of the tissues of the body, particularly the nervous system. Artificial feeding is the chief cause of rickets on account of the poor absorption of fats and often because of protein starvation. Prepared foods, on account of their large percentage of starch and their lack of protein and butter fat, are frequently the cause of rickets. In addition to its fuel value, milk fat contains the elements which promote growth. As previously stated, the infant requires a certain percentage of protein, fat, and mineral for the blood and tissue building and the growth of the bones. In artificial feeding, the preparations given are often deficient in these important elements. Climate and poor hygienic surroundings sometimes cause rickets in breastfed babies. probably on account of the lowered vitality of the mother and the child and consequently poor digestion and assimilation, but it is most frequently found in babies improperly fed. Dr. Winfield S. Hall says, "Fresh milk, appropriately modified in a proper amount, together with such other food as is indicated for the age and weight, is the important point in the treatment of rickets. Fresh air, day and night, sunshine, and outdoor life are only next in happiness. Cod liver oil, especially with the addition of phosphorus, is a very valuable addition to the treatment." Rickets is a chronic disease, while scurvy is an acute disease. This difficulty is considered as entirely due to improper feeding, and therefore must be overcome by a change of diet. Recovery is usually very rapid when the child is properly fed. Pains and tenderness about the joints, particularly of the legs, are the usual symptoms, causing the baby to cry when it is lifted or moved about. The gums sometimes become swollen and bleed. In almost every case it is found that infants suffering from scurvy have been on a continuous diet of prepared foods like malted milk, condensed milk, or boiled milk, which Dr. Hall terms dead food, presumably on account of a lack of the life-giving proteins and butterfat. When boiled milk has been used, the change should be made to pasteurized milk or raw milk if it can be secured clean and fresh. If prepared foods have been given, the amount should be greatly decreased and replaced by a cow's milk preparation in which a small percentage of the prepared food may be included, or, better still, omitted entirely if a cow's milk preparation, including a good substantial gruel, will agree. In scurvy, orange juice or other fruit juices should be given, from 1 to 4 ounces a day according to the age. Orange juice is particularly valuable, 2 or 3 teaspoonfuls being given before each feeding. A lack of fresh air often aids in producing scurvy. After the baby has reached the age of 1 year, we often feel that it is not necessary to be so careful of its diet. However, the number of deaths due to digestive disturbances caused by improper feeding during the 2nd year is significant. After the child is a year old, it should be given solid food very gradually to develop its digestive functions as well as its teeth. A soft boiled egg or a little beef juice may be added to the diet. Until the appearance of the anterior molar teeth, however, the child's diet should be confined largely to milk. A thin slice of buttered bread, or a little plain rice or rice pudding, a soda cracker, or bread crumbs and milk may be given. The year-old child may also begin to drink cow's milk. 1 or 2 glasses a day may be given until the child is at least 13 or 14 years old. Good judgment should be used in feeding children as habits and tastes are being formed, and whether they are normal or abnormal will depend on the kind of food given and when. 4 meals a day at regular intervals and nothing but water between these intervals is considered the best plan. Dry toast, zwieback, and crackers may be gradually added to the diet, also well-cooked cereals like cream of wheat, rice, and oatmeal. The oatmeal should be strained the first few months it is given. Very little sugar should be added to the cereals, as children very quickly cultivate a desire for sweets, rejecting other more nourishing foods, and too much sugar is apt to disturb the digestion. It is best during the first few months that no sugar be added to cereals. The amount of whole milk or milk diluted with barley or oatmeal gruel should be limited to 1 quart when the other foods are given. Beef juice, from 1 to 2 ounces. Mutton broth, chicken broth, and cereal broths may be given after the age of 1 year, not more than 2 ounces at first, gradually increasing in a few months' time to 4 ounces. This is best given at the beginning of the noon feeding. These broths have little nutritive value, but usually stimulate the appetite for other foods. The child must build muscle, bone, and sinew, and more protein is required as soon as he begins to walk. Milk, eggs, and cereals will furnish this. The heavier protein diet is best given at 18 months to 2 years, in eggs cooked soft. An egg may be given every other day, soft boiled for about 2 minutes or coddled for 4 minutes. At the age of 2 years an egg may be given every day. These soft cooked eggs are best when mixed with broken dry toast or broken whole wheat or graham crackers, because if dry food is served with them, they will be better masticated, hence more saliva be mixed with them. The habit of thorough mastication should be cultivated at this period. Oatmeal, thoroughly cooked, and shredded wheat with cream and sugar, ripe fruit, bread and butter, milk, soft cooked eggs, poached or boiled, constitute a rational diet at this age. Bread is better broken in milk because the chewing movements mix the saliva with the milk and smaller curds are formed as the milk enters the stomach. Custard may, after 2 years, be added to the diet, also baked or mashed potato, plain boiled macaroni, also a little butter on the potato, toast, or bread. Also, after the age of 18 months, a small quantity of very lean meat, like scraped or chopped beef or lamb, or finely minced chicken, may be given once a day. Also well cooked and mashed vegetables like peas, spinach, carrots, and asparagus tips. For the first few months these should be strained. Some fruit should also be given each day, orange juice, applesauce, or the pulp of stewed prunes. The latter especially is valuable when the bowels are inclined to be constipated. Tea, coffee, and cocoa are absolutely objectionable, and before the age of 2 years no kind of candy should be given. One of the most important things to teach the child when it is taking foods other than milk is thorough mastication, not only to assist the proper growth of the teeth, but to prevent the digestive disturbances that invariably occur from the bolting of food, and children are especially liable to do this. Dry toast and zwieback compel mastication and strengthen the gums. These should be given in the hand, a piece at mealtime, and occasionally between meals if the child seems hungry. The child will then gradually get into the habit of chewing other solid foods when they are given. If the child is hungry between meals, he should be fed at a regular period midway between breakfast and luncheon, and between luncheon and the evening meal. The food should be dry, toast or a dry cracker, to induce thorough and slow mastication. Many object to piecing between meals, but if this piecing be done at hours as regular as his meal hour, and the food be dry and well masticated, it will readily digest and will not interfere with his meals. The growing child needs more frequent meals than the adult. His stomach is not so large, he is active in outdoor exercise, and eliminates waste freely. He also requires much heat and energy. The active child at outdoor play uses almost as much energy as the laboring man. Many mothers are in doubt as to whether the baby's food should be salted. It is necessary to add a very little salt to the food for the baby. Broths should be seasoned slightly and a pinch of salt added to potatoes and eggs. Cereals and vegetables are cooked in water to which a little salt has been added. Experienced observers of children and their ailments and diseases have said that more babies are killed by overfeeding than by underfeeding. Especially in summer, when the child's condition reflects that of the mother, too much food will cause indigestion, irritation of the stomach, and diarrhea. Often the child is fretful because it is too warm or is thirsty. It will often be benefited by giving it less food and more water. This fretful mind affects the child's digestion just as it affects the digestion of the mother. If a healthy child refuses good, wholesome food because it wishes some other than what is offered it, it is not hungry and doesn't need the food. The growing child craves sweets, but a child should not be given candy whenever it wants it during the day. Candy or sugar is quickly converted into heat and is best eaten immediately following a meal. Sugar may be spread on bread for the 4 o'clock lunch, or a little candy may be eaten at this time. 2 or 3 pieces of candy, an inch square, are sufficient. End of section 15. End of What to Eat and When by Susanna Cocroft.